Today, too.
All right, we are live. Good afternoon. Look at this. Welcome in, everybody. This is day 2 of the tournament, and it is PHLY Bets. He is the great Tim Legler. I'm Anthony Gargano, and we are live at the Turf Club, the South Philadelphia Race and Sports Book, right here from Parx Casino, which we love. Don't forget, come over here. If you guys are hanging or watch the game, we got great food specials and drink specials here in South Philadelphia, just a stone's throw from all the stadiums and everything else. I mean, it's fantastic. Of course, the great Parx Casino in Ben Salem will have you covered for all the tournament actions. All that action is fantastic. And if you can't get to either and you're going to be in and around or home, whatever, just make sure you have that Bet Parx app, Bet Parx Friday. We we're into it already. We're going to get into everything shortly. The Bet Parx app is the only sports betting app that I'll recommend. Live bet on all the tournament games. We're going to get into Legs and I all day long, down through tonight and all weekend long. Download this Bet Parx app. You still have futures. You have all kinds of ways. So much fun. They got all the details on betparx.com. Like, listen, right now you make a winning $10 sports bet, you get $125 in sportsbook bonus back. It's a great offer to get you started. You got to be 21 in PA, New Jersey, Maryland, Ohio. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. You love to play. You play to win. You bet Parx. All right, my brother. Well,
what's up?
Good afternoon.
Yeah, man.
It's great to see you.
Too.
It's wall-to-wall hoops, so much to talk about. Let me just start off by saying, and we'll get into today's action and what lies ahead tonight and over the weekend, but this is why you are who you are, all right? And you are a true doctorate of basketball, all right? Because on Wednesday, when we did our tournament preview, I got to give my man flowers because he said, listen, I'm not buying Kentucky. I don't like the way they look. I don't believe that Cal, in a tight situation, they're a young team, and in a tight situation, I don't trust them. And use the word trust. Lo and behold, Oakland sends Kentucky packing. You called it, man.
Man, and they are now 2-6 in their last 8 tournament games. Right, so this pattern has been something that's going on with Kentucky, and people, obviously, those alum are outraged today. You're like, I don't know how Cal faces. Like, they got all these parties set up after these games. He's got to go face the boosters and the alumni. That's a tough walk.
Yeah.
For Calipari, when you lose to a team like Oakland.
That's the ultimate walk of shame.
Yeah, and look, they have a lot of talent, obviously, but remember what I said to you yesterday. If you are one of those lower-seeded teams, double-digit seed, okay? And in this case, it's a 14-3. You just have to withstand the early surge, where they just get you with athleticism and size, and you feel overwhelmed, you look overwhelmed.
That was Colgate today. I've actually thought Colgate would play Baylor tough, but they just hit a barrage of threes. I mean, they were just banging threes all day.
You saw some of this in a few of these games, but then some of them were tight. We had a couple upsets yesterday along these lines. Just withstand that surge and the pressure. It's amazing to watch the pressure shift. Now, look, I'll give Kentucky credit in this regard. They made a ton of shots late.
They did.
Like, they had 6 threes.
They don't play defense.
They couldn't guard. They couldn't stop this team, and it wasn't just, Golke, which we'll get into him in a minute. What a story, man.
Oh, my God.
Amazing
10
story.
threes. Was that you?
10 threes.
Was that you back in the day?
I know what it feels like to get that hot. That was pretty amazing. Not on that stage, but I know what it feels like to get that hot. Here's an amazing thing, dude. 300, that kid's taken this year, 355 shots. 347 of them are three-pointers.
That's amazing.
I've never heard of such a thing.
That's outrageous.
Yesterday, he was 10 for 20 from the field, 10 for 20 from the three. And he had 30
Oh,
points
my
and 2 free throws,
God.
32 points. So he was a story, but then the kid Cole hit the big corner three, was the dagger three.
That was, yeah.
The kid Townsend, though, played great inside against Kentucky's bigs, an undersized big. He gave him a double-double, right? Played well. So it was collectively. And you know what's funny? After the game, I loved the comments by the coach and Golke when they were expecting
Yes, they
this.
were not, throwing a party.
Not at all.
Oh,
No.
my God, storm the court.
And even their preparation, they
Yeah.
expected to be in the game. And it was fascinating to watch that dynamic, which happens every year. The pressure completely shifts to the powerhouse team that finds themselves in this situation, fighting for their life against this scrappy, 12 seed, 13 seed, whatever it may be. And all of a sudden, you don't process things quite the same way, and you're looking for answers. Give us answers when we have a timeout.
That's right.
And they're just unfortunately weren't enough to come and give Oakland all the credit in the world, man. I love this story. The guy's been there 40 years.
Oh my God.
He coached
He's
one
retiring.
of the kids. He coached one of the kids' dads.
It's amazing.
How wild is
I mean,
that?
some of the great stories that we've seen. The first game of the tournament was Duquesne, the coach that was retiring.
Right.
LeBron sent over the sneakers, right? Got fresh kicks, the whole thing. And here they go. They go out and upset, a big upset of Mississippi State.
I interviewed for that job. I interviewed for the Duquesne job. And they ended up going with, look, they made a good hire. The guy was at Akron for years, won 20 games a bunch of times. They brought him in. The program was in rock bottom at Duquesne. Brought him in, and here they are. First tournament appearance, I believe, in around 50 years. Close to it.
Wow.
So he was able to do it, but he actually had already announced he's going to be retiring. He's going to be moving on. But what a story for him to do that.
Gets to coach another game.
The Sanford game, Sanford, Kansas last night.
Oh my! It's all like getting screwed.
Oh, it's just
legs.
Terrible.
Come on.
Terrible that there's no replay put in place to take care of that, because now the whole world knows that the Sanford kid makes a great play on that breakaway, hits the ball cleanly out of his hands. And
yes.
Here's the thing. So look, watching it full speed, this is, we're not going to be too hard on the refs, because full speed, the way the kid landed and everything, it looked like he probably came across his arms, right? Because he was kind of out of control. He landed on his chest. They blow the whistle. We all think it's a foul. But you know what's funny? The Sanford kid immediately starts gesturing to his bench like, I didn't touch him. And I'm thinking, come on, man. Dude, you had to hit him, right? They show the replay.
And he didn't.
All ball.
Yeah.
And if they just play on, if they were able to catch that official could see that was all ball. That ball comes off the backboard right to a Sanford player with a Kansas kid laid out on the floor. You're going 5-on-4 the other way, down one with 20 seconds left in the game.
You're going to win.
You're probably going to win the game. There's a very good chance you win the game. Yeah, just take it to the hole. You got 5-on-4. You get numbers, get to the rim, get a foul, get a layup, whatever. And they probably
were scrappy. And listen,
they were.
We talked about it. I'm not a believer in Kansas, that this was not your typical, blue blood Kansas team, and that they were vulnerable. And Sanford showed you how vulnerable they were.
And they're thin. They played really 6 guys, Kansas. They got injuries. I mean, that's 6 players in the NCAA tournament in a tight game. That's just unheard of. So that's a concern for them going forward. They're very relieved. Bill Self is very relieved that he's not having the same conversations today that Calipari is having with his alum and boosters and athletic director, because it's hard to explain to people that follow the program and who's Oakland? All the Kentucky fans are well, we got Oakland first round? Oh, it's going to be an easy one.
Yeah, they don't even know it's Michigan, not California.
The looks on those people's faces when they panned around, the looks on the Kentucky.
It was that
fans.
shock.
Yeah, total. Hands on heads.
Oh my God, it was horrible.
Usually you have some of the band members crying. You saw some of that. Everybody's devastated, because you think if you're involved in the program in Kentucky, you're thinking this could be a 2-week party at least. Right? You might be going to the Final Four, possibly.
And by the way,
and you're over one night. You're going home.
First round, bro. That's the kick in the junk, right? Which is, first round, you're out. When you have, listen, I know they're young, but come on, they got talent. Yeah, they got talent.
Yeah. Yeah, they had the most talented, certainly the most talented 3 or 4 players on the court.
I mean, Wagner,
at least.
Right across the bridge.
Reeves is so good, man.
Yeah.
He is so good.
And to come away, and let's talk about this for a second, which you talked about Cal. And, listen, it's undeniable what Cal has done in his career. John Calipari is one of the legends. But there's something about the X and O in a game, in a tight game, that kind of is Cal's Achilles heel. You called it the other day.
Yeah, because sometimes it requires like some technical adjustment or a specific set to be run in a certain time to take advantage of it, or something. You're getting hurt by something. Just figure out a way to take that away. And it's when you see this happen, it comes off as if they weren't expecting this level of offensive play out of their opponent. Like that's how they look. Like, wow. And next thing you know, you look up and it's halftime or it's 8 minutes into the second half, and then you're finally at the point where you're like, well, I guess this is going down to the wire.
I know.
And now everybody's kind of feeling that tension because of the enormity of losing, if you're Kentucky, to a program like Oakland. And it's funny because the last thing the kid Golke said in his interview, they interviewed him and they're going back and forth with the coach. He's got his arm around the coach. It was a great moment. They're talking to him after the game. And the last thing he said, they were done the interview, and he reaches over, he grabbed, I don't know if you saw this, he grabbed the microphone, he goes, "We're not a Cinderella."
Yeah,
handed it back, and they walked to the locker room. So their mentality was different than what Kentucky's was. But now,
we're not a Cinderella.
Oh, by the way, that kid did not have a single Division I offer.
I heard that.
He was a Division II player and transferred in there. Yeah. And he only averaged 12 points a game, by the way. It wasn't like – because I'm watching this kid play last night, and I'm going – immediately at halftime, I'm Googling their program. Right? I'm like, how many points did this guy average this year?
Yeah.
He averaged 12 points a game. And he just had 32 against Kentucky in the NCAA tournament.
And it was amazing, too, because if you look at his release and the array of shots that he made, I mean, it was impressive.
It's funny, too, because he's kind of stocky.
Yeah.
He's got, shorter arms, but he was getting to his spots.
He's got a good, quick release.
Well, and it comes off. It comes off. He's got an incredible amount of backward rotation on the ball. Like, that just tells you it's coming off absolutely perfectly off those last two fingers, the way that he's generating that kind of rotation, and his strong wrist at the end. So even when guys are in his space, once you're a shooter, I don't care what level you're at. If you are a shooter on that caliber and you start stringing together shots, it's going to be a problem for whoever you're playing against if you don't make a massive adjustment to keep the ball out of his hands. He just kept running. I'm just going to keep running. And eventually they make mistakes. That's what happens when you move like that. You force communication. Eventually there's going to be a communication breakdown, and he's running free into another three-pointer.
So what would you have done adjustment-wise? Like, if you look at, and as that game's playing out, what would you have done?
Well, I'm telling you right now.
Here's the other thing. They just couldn't defend. The adjustment needed to come on defense.
I'm telling you right now, if I'm going into a game and I'm Kentucky and we're playing this team and it comes out on Selection Sunday, this is who we're playing. I guarantee you they had not seen that team play one time, knew nothing about them. So now you got from Sunday to Thursday, you got Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you got 4 days basic preparation plus Thursday morning. I'm telling you right now, if I look up and I see there's a player on their team that has taken 335 shots and 327 were three-pointers, every single guy that's guarding him is absolutely on the high side, literally with their shoulders and their back facing half court.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to go this way. He does not want to cut into the lane. Right. Obviously, if you take 8 2-point shots an entire season, he's not even comfortable going down there.
No.
So and you see Curry get played this way sometimes at the NBA level, where you're literally going to make him run through his chin. Now, the difference is Curry will go the other way and catch it on a back cut and get into the paint. He's a crafty finisher. Yeah. This kid wasn't going to do that.
No.
If you got on the high side and he couldn't get it, at some point he would have just run. He would have run through the lane out to the other side, where now there's another guy waiting on the high side.
Same thing.
I just think Calipari probably looked at the balance of their scoring, and it wasn't like I said, if this kid was averaging 25, he probably gets that treatment. Right. But he wasn't. He's averaging 12 points a game. So in their wildest dreams, they're not thinking a guy, no matter what kind of a specialist he is going to specialize to that extent that he's the best player on the court on a given night and beat them with 10 threes. So I just don't think they had enough preparation with him.
Their scouting, listen, for a program like Kentucky, shame on them, because when you're bringing up, the amount of threes that he took, and the other thing too is you want to cut the head off early. So if you come out in that kind of defense, he's not getting hot.
No, he hit 7 in the first half. 7 threes. And at that point, they were already putting graphics on the screen where that ranked. I think the most threes ever made against a Kentucky team in the NCAA tournament in the first half.
And he did it in a half.
And then 10 overall, which is only like 5 guys ever have made 10 in a college game, in a college tournament game. So, listen, nothing but hats off to, and I love it. Here's why I love it. Not because Kentucky lost, and I said that on Wednesday. I don't care. I have no dog in the fight. I do not lose sleep over any of this. There's no personal agenda. Here's why I love it. It gives me a rooting interest on Saturday.
Sure.
I'm watching Oakland now, and I'm pulling hard for Oakland.
Yeah.
How can you not?
How did they kind of replicate, shooters? And it's funny because if you look at, like, guys who just have an incredible day, most of the time, unless they're the elite of the elite, they have the come down to earth game the following game.
Yep. It happens. But you also have, you've had these runs. St. Peter's last year, right? You do have them. My buddy Jim Larinaga and Chris Caputo back at GW back in the day going to the Final Four. Or George Mason going back to the Final Four with an unheralded team. No, they got NC State.
I liked NC State. I thought NC State was underseeded.
Yep.
They were an 11 seed. I liked them yesterday. They won. They were an underdog. They went outright. And I actually think, like we talked about them, they were hot. They win the ACC tournament. They're a team that I thought could be a little dangerous, and I see the same thing. Like I like NC State tomorrow.
I said the same thing Wednesday.
Yeah,
remember we both and I picked. I said it outright. I think they're going to win the game, and they did win the game. I just thought there was something to be said about coming off of that kind of a run, and then right into a tournament game. Like you win the ACC tournament unexpectedly. You beat Carolina coming off that big win over Duke, and then you got Carolina in your sights. Interstate rivalry, you take care of them. I can't imagine the high they were riding, and then you go, boom, 3 days later you're playing in a game. And so that just carried over.
Yeah.
And now this will be interesting because Oakland, even if you win that game, Oakland thinks they're getting a 6 seed in the second round. Instead, they got an 11 seed.
Yeah.
So, they're thinking, hey, man, we got to punch this chance.
Like you said, they have the right mentality, which is we're not Cinderellas. That, we're to be taken seriously. I mean,
you didn't see the typical reaction you would normally get out of a 14 seed winning. Like immediately, not only in the moment. Actually, did you see? I love this about the coach. There was about, I don't know, it was probably inside of a minute. They were up maybe 5 or 6. And a couple of the kids on Oakland's team had gone over to like the fan section. And they're like doing this.
Oh, I didn't see that, yeah.
Oh, and they pan over to the coach, and he is screaming. He drops like 3 F-bombs. What the F are you doing? Get over here. The game's not over. He's screaming at him. Like, get back, focus, center yourself. They finished the game, and then he probably had conversations with his team. There was a couple timeouts
you
late
don't do that,
where he's basically, I'm sure, saying, look, act like we've been there before when this ends, right? And they did. And then they go to the locker room. There was a camera, went in the locker room. They're all just sitting there, very subdued, looking at him, and he's giving them some message, I'm sure, about, hey, this is just one.
Yeah.
Why are we happy with one? Let's think about what we got to do Saturday.
Yeah, let's get to the Sweet 16.
And the whole approach was fantastic. I love the story. I love a guy that's been there for that long, impacting kids on that level. His players clearly love him to death. And there's a reason. He's just a real, genuine human being that also, by the way, can really coach.
He could really, really coach. See, that's why I'm a big proponent of him. Legs being a coach. How many times did we talk about this?
Stylistically, I was like watching this guy. I was like, my daughter was texting with me. She's like, "Oh, you watching this game?" I'm like, "Yeah." She was a shooter. They were loving this kid. They were loving this kid.
I don't doubt that your daughter was a shooter.
She could stroke it. So we were watching this kid. And we're going back and forth in the text, and I'm like, "Man, this is." I said, that coach looks like a dude that I'd want to go have a beer with, man, and just talk hoops with. And more importantly, actually, like impact on lives, because you can tell that's what it's all about for him. And hey, if you can win some games along the way, great.
Hey, man, that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
I do want to tell everybody that, listen, we're here in that South Philadelphia Parx Race and Sportsbook right here on Packer Avenue. And don't forget, opening day is actually this coming Thursday. And PHLY Phillies will be here. It's going to be a big party here at Parx in South Philadelphia. Live pregame show. We're going to be here to watch the game. There'll be ticket giveaways. All right, raffles. Do yourself a favor and get here early for the party. AllPHLY.com under the events tab has all the details. All right. You want to make sure you're here. It's going to be a blast. The All Philly show will be here. Be opening day. Legs is a big baseball guy, so he understands it. All right, and don't forget the Parx South Philadelphia. Stone throw for the ballpark, man. It's a great place to come in, and if you want to bet the game, you got it right here. It's perfect. Let's go through today so far, And here's what we have going on this Friday. Earlier, Northwestern took care of Florida Atlantic in overtime. Great game, man. That was a great one. They run away with it in overtime, but it was a good game. FAU goes down. A lot of people like them.
I had them winning that game. They lose in overtime. I count that as a win. That could have gone either way, Anthony.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's a win. Andrew, is that a win? It's a win?
I love their coach. Dusty May's a great coach. He's going to be heavily named in some of these big jobs that are open. Guarantee you. He'll probably be involved in Michigan, Louisville. I mean, you got some big time programs right now looking for head coaches.
This is like the advent of change.
Yeah, there'll be more. And Dusty May will be he'll be figured prominently in that. I really like their team. And look, I didn't see that game. I was coming up here. I didn't see that game. But so I don't know what happened at the end. Was it like, a mistake made, a big shot made at the end of the game? I don't know, but I saw overtime, and they come up a little bit short.
Yeah, and the other game was a blowout. It was Baylor against Colgate. I actually thought Colgate would be able to hang in this game, right? They're a well-coached senior team. They have, like, the recipe to kind of hang, and they just fell under a deluge of threes. I was watching that game.
I took the over in that game. I wasn't looking at – because I hate those games with the big spreads.
Yeah.
In a tournament, man. Because
you should have won, right?
I did. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. I felt really good at halftime. It was already up to 88. The over was 138. So I'm like, I felt pretty good. 50 points in the second half. But
I mean, the way Baylor shot, it was absurd. I mean, they scored 92 points.
They got a big-time guard. They got a good team, and it was a little bit too much for Colgate. Sometimes you get these 3-14 matchups too, where it's a 30-point game.
Yeah.
Sometimes you get these games that go down to the wire, and it's a little bit different.
Bridges had 23. Bridges had, and they were just on fire from downtown. Going on right now in the second half, San Diego State is up 6 on UAB. Marquette and Western Kentucky
how about that?
Tied at 48.
Got that thing right up here in front of us.
Yeah.
48 all, about 16 minutes to go. It's a 15 and a 2 seed. Western Kentucky, by the way. Look, sometimes you get a 15 seed that's only lost like 6 games.
Yeah.
Because they've lost 11 games. They're 22 and 11, but they play good non-conference schedule. But they got Marquette right now on the ropes. 16 minutes to go.
I like Marquette.
Of people like Marquette.
So do I. I'll count my. I'll raise my hand.
They're super tough.
I'm surprised this one. This is going to be a sweat. And then early in the first half, it's Clemson with an 11-7 lead over New Mexico. Coming up, 3:22. It's actually about the tip. Right now is the number 1 overall seed UConn against Stetson. It was funny. I was talking to Dick Girardi yesterday. So Dick was in for you yesterday. What a great day great week of hoops. I get legs on Wednesday, Dick Girardi on Thursday, legs on Friday. And
what a great guy Dick Girardi is.
He is. He
covered me for 4 years at LaSalle.
His first year was right there. Your year at LaSalle.
That's right. Yeah.
You got to LaSalle.
Yeah. And I've run into Dick a number of times over the years, different places. Man, he's one of the best.
So we were talking about it, and listen, as everybody else is, he's bullish on UConn. Does not think that there's a way that they can get beat. And like we discussed this on Wednesday. I mean, they just do everything. Right? Like, that's the problem, is they could beat you 2 ways, right? They could score the ball, and they could also play really good defense.
Yep.
There's not a lot of weakness when it comes to that team. And it's amazing how they replenished after losing, key members of last year's team.
They can lock you up defensively with length and lateral quickness. They've got size up front. They've got shooting when they need it. They can run. They've got guys you can throw it ahead to in transition. They got great balance, too. I mean, your leading scorer on the year is only 15 points a game. So, you think about they're getting 82 points a night, and their leading scorer is 15. So you're that deep. You got 7-8 different guys that on any given night can give you double figures. That's a luxury for a coach to have. You don't have to worry about 1 or 2 guys having good nights, and that's big in the tournament. Because in the tournament, one of your stars has a bad night. I mean, just look at Kentucky last night. Now, Reeves played great, but look at Dillingham.
Yes.
Look at Reed Shepherd. Reed Shepherd's first basket was late in the game.
Exactly, and that's what scares me about these one-player teams. Like Tennessee looked good against St. Peter's. Now, that's not the same St. Peter's team that they brought back.
Right.
But Connect, they're a one-man team.
Yeah.
If Dalton Connect is not connecting, they're vulnerable.
Definitely, and that's where UConn doesn't have to worry about that as much. You got guys, you got guys that you're kind of counting on and expecting to play a certain way based on how they played all season, but you don't have to rely on a couple of guys like combining for 40 points to give you a chance to win. And if they don't have those kind of nights, you have no shot. That's not UConn. That's why everybody likes them so much.
A team I like is Auburn. They're coming up 4:15. Auburn and Yale. This is a good game. Yale's a good team. They're on the ropes. Brown had them on the ropes on Saturday, but they're a good team. They played a real good conference, non-conference schedule. Like they're good. They're not your typical Ivy. They'll go up. They'll be aggressive with the ball. They'll move the ball. They can shoot it. They play smart like the Ivy. But, that's going to be a fun game. Auburn is 13.5 against Yale. There
are a lot of teams that this 13 seed Yale could have gotten in the first round that I think would have made you think that, wow, this is literally could be a pick-em game down the stretch. I don't know that about Auburn.
No, Auburn's good.
Auburn's going to come at you with a little bit too much, I think, and eventually wear them down. But that would not shock me if that game was tight for a half.
Yeah.
And then at some point, Auburn, I think, is going to hit them with a 10-0 run where it's just going to be a little bit too much. And that's when you get separation. And then what happens is, once that happens, usually the teams in the Yale spot, maybe they'll come down and they'll play a little bit too fast and they'll take a quick shot because they're trying to stop that run or get back in the game, and then it snowballs against you the other way.
And then a little bit later on after that, we go to Colorado, the 10 seed, and the favorite. Here's some water.
That's
from
the one.
Parx.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And Colorado and Florida. Florida, the 7th seed. I'm not in love with Florida. I don't know what you think.
I'm not in love with Florida either. That's probably Colorado. Florida is probably one of my 2 or 3 favorite games of the day. Right?
Really?
I want to watch that game. I think Colorado's going to give them everything they can handle. Look, it's a 7-10. They both have basically the same record.
Yeah.
I think Colorado has a really good chance to pull off an upset in that game.
Colorado's a slight favorite here at Parx in South Philly in the Parx app. Colorado is a 1.5 against Florida.
Interesting that you have a 10 seed against a 7 and 10 seeds favored. It's rare that you see that, but this is one of those cases. That's why I think Colorado gets that win.
Yeah, I do too. And that'll be the end of the day session. The night session begins at 6:50 on TNT. Texas A&M and Nebraska. I'm actually sporting my Nebraska hoodie right now.
What's that about? What's that?
Well, it's more about the football team because Matt Rule's a good friend, and I got the care package, and I love I love what he's doing out there. He's a good coach, man. But I kind of, because of the connection with Nebraska, I watch their basketball too.
Yeah.
And I like this team. This team they could shoot it. I love them tonight, by the way. They play A&M. A&M's a 1.5-point favorite. I love Nebraska in this game.
Yeah, I think this is these 8-9s are so hard to pick, but I also like Nebraska to win this game. I think they impressed me this year. What's going on with their program over the last 2 or 3 years? They finally have kind of turned the corner, I think, because it was some tough sledding there at first. Hoiberg got there. Now they're starting to find their traction.
The second half of the year, you saw them play.
Yeah,
they started to play. They played much better. The other thing too is they play a similar style to Penn State. And remember, Penn State and A&M last year gave them trouble. So I think the matchup really favors Nebraska in this game.
That's going to be probably one of the nail biters today. Vermont Duke at 7-10. Vermont's a good team.
They are a good team. They could give Duke a sweat.
I could see it. I could totally see it.
You're feeling that, aren't you?
Yeah, I could feel that. I could feel it. They start. They get multiple guys that are going to hurt you from the 3-point line, man. And how that is, you get that connection, that energy, feed off each other. A couple of them go in early, and that could be a problem. It could be a problem to guard them.
It's so interesting. I look at them, and I look at tonight, and I'm curious to see how they're going to respond, like in a tight pressure situation. Remember, like Carolina blew them out. Like Carolina had great success against them. This Duke team, I think it can wilt on you.
Definitely. And look, they're going to be in the same boat because they're not like necessarily a team that a lot of people are looking at as national championship contender, but they still have Duke on the front of their jersey. and they're going to be in the same boat. Like the pressure and the tightness kicks in if Vermont is in the game with 10 minutes to go. That's going to be a very interesting game for me.
Yeah. All right. The other games tonight is Purdue, the number 1 seed, against Grambling. Purdue has a listen. After last year's debacle with Purdue, they have no excuse with the way that their seed was, their path in their region. Oh my God, they got to at least get to the Elite Eight.
Think they cover 26.5?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, they should. I mean, they should.
I mean, it's a big number. I like you. I'm not a big fan of that. The team that I love tonight to cover a big number is Houston.
Yeah.
Houston's given 23.5 to Longwood. And here's the problem. Houston plays such good defense that they could really shut them down. And you know what happens, right? Like when those teams that are big dogs can't score, like I could see this thing being like 24-4 to start the game.
This is going to be the only thing that will, like, if at some point Houston calls off the dogs.
Yeah.
Right? And you don't know that. I'm talking that probably would be like in the last 6 minutes of the game. But I totally agree with you. Team like Longwood, right, has not seen anything like the defensive pressure that they're going to face against Houston. And the guards are up, and that's hard enough to handle. If you've never seen that kind of athleticism, like in the league you play in your regular season, that's hard enough. But they're funneling you to length, and they're funneling you to great size at the rim as a last line of defense. Very difficult, man, to get any sort of clean look against them. So I think they're going to come out, and that's the tone that they want to set. Sampson wants to set the entire tournament. This is the way to do it. You come out, you make a statement, and I agree with you. That's why there's a reason. That's the lowest over-under in the entire first round, 129.
Is it really?
129.
You know, it's funny. You're good at that, the totals. Like, because of the pace? Is that what you're looking at?
I look at pace. I look at because here's the thing. Like, you can have a team that's a prohibitive favorite, but if they play really fast, and then you look at the other team, the lower-seeded team, and if they're a team that, typically throughout their season, even though it's lesser competition they're playing, they're scoring numbers, and the heavier favorite is playing fast, that means that score is going to get up there. And I think a lot of times the over-under is a little bit low on those type of games. But this tells you a lot, man. Like, just go up and down. Like, look, Charleston, Alabama, the over-under is 173. The Houston game, it's 129.
Wow.
So they're telling you right there what they think is going to happen.
Wow.
Like they're thinking Longwood's going to have a difficult time probably getting to 50 points.
Yeah, which is interesting because you look and you see such a big number with such a low total.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So that's they're expecting that to just be suffocating defense. Houston's I like them. I think Houston's a Final Four team and potentially a national champion.
What do you think of Charleston, Alabama?
Yeah, that's a fun one, man.
Because I like Charleston in that game.
I like Charleston a lot. I think I picked them in my bracket. I don't have it in front of me.
Really?
I believe I picked Charleston to win that game. That could be dead wrong. You never know. But all you go by, you just try to look at trends and look at your matchups, and you look at the way a certain team plays, and do you think they could give them problems? Charleston, they've had a good program down there for a number of years. This is nothing new to them.
And they've always been that team that's dangerous early. Like they can give these teams a sweat. So I'm with you. 9.5. It feels fat to me, that line. It really does. Then Wisconsin, James Madison. So I like Wisconsin again. Wisconsin 5.5. I almost think they're undervalued because the one thing they do that typical Wisconsin teams that were better, but they score. Like they'll push the ball.
James Madison, that most people don't know, is 31-3.
I know.
Okay, so people are looking at that. You're at 12. I know. Look at and not only that, they didn't really do much non-conference at all.
Yeah.
Because some of these teams, they know they're in a weaker league, and they'll go ahead and they'll take 5-6 losses at the start of the year because number one, they'll get money. Like that'll be a buy game for the bigger program. They'll do it for that reason, and also because you think you got a good chance to win your league, and you want to have seen that kind of competition if you get to the NCAA tournament. That's not really the case with this James Madison team. And they've been down. The program's been down a little bit, and so now they kind of feel this revival. I think the 5.5 points is low for me. I think Wisconsin covers that. Yeah,
I agree. I just think because they could score and they could push the ball, they're different than the typical Bo Ryan team. Now those teams are really good. This team I don't think has a deep run. Although look, if Duke wins, there's a matchup, and Wisconsin can beat Duke.
Oh, yeah, I agree. I agree with that. Duke's vulnerable.
Utah State, TCU is the 9:55 game.
One of the few games I have personal rooting interest.
Really?
Yes, with
Do
TCU.
tell.
TCU. They've got a kid on that team named Jacoby Coles. His father is Jerome Coles. Jerome Coles was my teammate on those Omaha Racers teams I was talking with you about on Wednesday back in the CBA when I was trying to get to the league. And Jerome was our power forward on those teams. And now his son is at TCU. He's the starter for them, and so I'm pulling for them.
Wow, that's funny. What was that like? That CBA like? When you're in Omaha, how physical was the brand of basketball back then?
It was physical, but I think the biggest challenge is psychologically being in the moment every night. When we had great fan support in Omaha, and there were some cities like that, like Rapid City, South Dakota, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Like they're rabid. It's all they had in those towns. They're showing up. They're packing the arena that they play in. It's going to be a wild environment. But there's other places, man. Sometimes you'd go to Fargo, North Dakota. There's 100 people. You're playing Fargo, and you're thinking to yourself, at that time, I'm leading the league in scoring. I'm averaging like 26 a game in that league, and there's 100 people there. There's no NBA scouts there that particular game, and you kind of start to question, like, what am I doing? What am I doing? Like, where's this going?
Yeah, like, what's this for tonight?
And so how do you find the internal drive to go out there and push yourself to have a great game, even when you're not getting any external adrenaline? It's all internal. And that's what that league was about. And it was about how bad do you want to get out and how bad do you want to get to the next level or parlay it into something overseas. I did both. I took it first to Europe, then to the NBA, and played in the league for 10 years. But there are guys that played the CBA for 10 years because they couldn't escape that league. And some of it was mentality, man, and the mental toughness you've got to have every night to bring it and act like you're literally auditioning for your life every game.
And what was it like? Like, that was a completely no frills, like Euro bus rides.
Now, part of it was they didn't have like a salary cap. They didn't have like set rules league-wide. So, like, I played for an incredibly generous owner.
Oh, that's great.
Who took care of us in a certain way, and we had better living conditions than a lot of the teams around the league. He got us really nice apartments and furnished and all that. Like, some guys, it wasn't the case. Man, you were living with 4 guys in an apartment. We didn't. We had our own spot. And, like, so that's a big part of it, man. Like, mentally, you're not.
That's interesting.
You're not getting down, like,
right?
You know what I mean? Because it's like, this is pretty cool, man.
Yeah, I'm
getting
I'm
paid
living
to play
well.
basketball,
and I'm living all right.
I got my own spot,
yeah.
like, and I'm getting to go play professional basketball every night. And look, a lot of games, most games, and then of course the All-Star game, there was a ton of scouts, and you had an opportunity to change your life overnight. And I remember the last game I played in the CBA, the very last game I played, I had 47 points that night, and I actually missed a 3 from the corner late would have given me 50. Game ends, we win the game. I go back to my apartment, and I'm sitting there and, kind of basking and having a great game. But still, at this point, I'd been there a little bit. And I'm thinking, you always thinking, like, is this ever going to happen? Got a call, like 11:30 midnight.
Really?
Yeah, like 11:30 midnight that night. That was going to
drop at 47.
I was going to Phoenix. Phoenix Suns were picking me up. And that was a team that won like 60 games that year.
Who was on that squad?
So they had
is that KJ?
Tom Chambers, Kevin Johnson, Dan Marley, Jeff Hornacek, right? Tim Perry was on that team, actually, from Temple, my buddy. So anyway, so next thing you know, there you go. You're on a plane. And next morning, 6:30 a.m., you're at the Omaha airport, getting ready to board a plane to go fly to the Phoenix Suns, and you're going to meet them at the arena that night. And you're going to walk in the locker room.
Did you play?
I did. You're going to walk in the locker room, you're going to put a jersey on, and you're stepping on the court with a bunch of dudes you don't know at that level, and your dream of playing in the NBA has been fulfilled.
Okay, so what year was that?
That was 1990.
So that was before the title run.
Yep.
They were just amping up.
They were, but they were already loaded. And in fact, you mentioned Kevin Johnson. That was
KJ was like one of the great players of all time.
My very first field goal in the NBA is that game. I check in, and I'm running the left wing, and KJ's got the ball in the middle of the floor, and I kind of flare out. He kicks me out to the left wing, rose up, shot like maybe a 20-footer on the baseline, hit a jumper in transition. Made my first shot, and I'm running back, and Kevin Johnson winked at me, pointed at me, man. It was a cool moment. This is Kevin Johnson, man, and he just hooked me up with my first dime in the NBA. Yeah, it was a pretty cool night, man. And then I was on the team That just was the year that Tom Chambers broke the scoring record. It's now been
Yeah.
broken by Devin Booker, but he had 60 points against Seattle that year. And that was amazing to watch, man, because that was against like Sean Kemp.
Yeah.
And Tom Chambers was unbelievable.
Gary Payton.
People forget how good Tom Chambers was. I mean, he was so good, man.
Well, he was one of the original bigs that could face the basket.
He could face,
shoot.
but he also had a lightning quick first step and crazy bounce.
Yeah.
And Tom Chambers could get off. In fact, he's got that famous dunk on Mark Jackson.
Yeah.
Is one of the, people say it's top 10 dunk all time. But anyway, that was my experience, man. That was
How were they cool? Like when you come walking in the locker room and here you are, walking into the Suns locker room and there's KJ and everybody else. He said, were they cool with you?
Everybody was super cool, man. And I had already known a couple of the guys. And Marley and Hornacek were hurt.
Right.
And so that gave me an opportunity to come up.
Which actually makes sense because you could shoot the ball, and that's what they did.
Yeah, and I was there. So it was a 10-day contract, and then at the end of that, they got to decide 10 more days or send you back. They signed me for the second 10-day. But by the time the second 10-day even started, those guys were coming back. So it wasn't like a real opportunity for me to get minutes. But I did make one mistake. At the end of that, they told me I was going back to the CBA. Cotton Fitzsimmons was the head coach. Cotton Fitzsimmons basically was imploring me, come back to camp this summer. We need you in camp this summer. He was basically kind of telling me, like, we're going to find a spot for you, but they weren't going to give me any guaranteed money to do that. And there was a couple other teams around the league that were willing to do that. And I took some guaranteed money to go to the Minnesota Timberwolves camp instead. And to this day, and I know I made that team. I was the last cut. Because it was a guy who had a guaranteed contract, and I didn't. And I got cut. I got that knock on my door an hour before my money was going to be guaranteed for the season at a hotel. Yeah, in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Who was it?
I'm on the phone, and I'm like saying, man, I think I made the team. And I just had a great preseason game, my last game. I played great, and I was like really excited. Scott Brooks was on that team.
Yeah.
And he was telling me, man, dude, you're in. We're on the charter after the game. He's like, dude, you're in. You're good, man. The way you played tonight, you're good. I thought I was good. And it was Bill Musselman.
Yeah, sure.
Was the head coach, great Bill Musselman. He knocks on my door, man. And I'm like, dread. So I'm like, okay, he's either telling me I'm on the team or I'm not. But I'm like, why would he be coming to my room this late at night? And there it was, man. It was like another massive disappointment. So that sent me back to square one, but I was not going to give up, man. And I didn't.
So it's amazing because if you're in Phoenix, you're probably going to be on that title team.
Yeah,
or they went to the finals.
I just had a feeling that's what he was trying to say. They liked me so much, and like they saw my shooting ability. I fit in so well with their system and what they were going to do.
Yeah, because
playing off of those guys,
they spread the floor. And the way they spread the floor, you would have fit perfect. Where were you in Europe?
I was in Limoges, France, which was the #1 team in France. I went over there.
Where's that? How far is that from Paris?
That's about 2 hours, 3 hours south. I think southwest. I know it was a train ride to get to Paris. That was a crazy experience in my life. And it was on the team.
Well, tell me about because. And listen, we're going to get to the rest of the stuff. But one of the things I love, and I think is so interesting, are these stories in sports that they intersect with life. I do have to tell everybody about the BetParx app. Because now's the time to get the BetParx app. It's the tournament, all these games we're talking about. You want to make sure that you're armed. Now, listen, we're here in the Parx Racing Sportsbook in South Philly, which is a great spot. Make sure you put that on your list because it is awesome. But obviously the casino in Ben Salem has it all. It's great. You can't get to either. New users, you download the BetParx Sportsbook app. You make a winning $10 sports bet, you get $125 in sportsbook bonus back. BetParx.com has all the details. The BetParx app is safe. It's easy to use, simple. I mean, you got live in-game, money lines, like whatever, parlays, like whatever you want, same-game parlays. It's got it all. It's a great offer to get you started. You got to be 21 in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland, Ohio. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. You love to play. You play to win. You bet. BetParx. We'll get into a little bit later on tomorrow's games. We'll look at the Sixers who play LeBron tonight. We will get into their West Coast trip. We'll talk about the NBA playoffs. That's all straight ahead on the show. And we're here, until 5 o'clock today. So hang with us. I'm so fascinated by the Europe thing.
Yeah.
Because when you play in Europe, it's the game has become global, and you see it by the Euros now. Like some of the great players in the league now come from Europe. But back then it was different.
Very different. This was a situation where it was like 1992. I was
So it's pre-internet.
I was in Omaha, Nebraska. I had been already at that point. I'd had 10-day contracts, multiple with Utah, Denver, Phoenix, up for 10 days to 3 weeks basically, and then back. Really banging my head against the wall, just wondering when am I going to get an opportunity to like really play at the NBA level and sink or swim and prove to people I could do it. And I get approached. It's like February, and I get approached by an agent who said that this team Limoges in France was looking to replace an American player. And I'm like, how much? And they give me the quote. And I'm thinking, like, think about it, what I'm making in the CBA at this point.
Yeah,
Been out of school for at this point 3.5, 4 years.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I got to start making some money. And the money was great. And I'm like, you know what? I got to do it. So I went into my coach's hotel room. I had a conversation. He wished me luck, understood it. The next day, I was on a flight to Paris. And
Are you serious?
Yeah.
No, you're single at the time. You're.
I actually had just gotten married the previous summer.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm basically
So
still
what a
like,
tough life too, because
Yeah.
you're
oh yeah, and I went over by myself.
Right.
And so it was nuts, and I was 24, 25, and I'm heading over there. And I'm
Had
like,
you ever been overseas?
Yeah, a couple times in college, actually, I took trips
Yeah.
to play. It was actually, they put an all-star team together from, like, the Big Five area that I went on after my freshman year. So I had been over there, but not, this is different, man. You're going to be living there. And
Yeah, it's not like you're going to see the Eiffel Tower.
Right, and no one's with you.
Yeah.
So, nobody to
there's
help you even have a conversation.
Chaperone, yeah.
Now, I did know this. There was another American on the team, and they didn't tell me who it was. Okay, so I didn't ask. I didn't even think about it. So here's really fascinating. The American I was replacing, who had an injury and would not allow their doctors to operate on him, said he had to come back to the States. And that's where this friction started. And they said, we're getting rid of you. Kelly Tripucka.
Oh my God! Yes, from the Pistons.
No, Pistons and Notre Dame, right? And
Kelly Tripucka.
Kelly Tripucka averaged 25 a game in the league.
That was his
this
last.
Was the end of his career,
right? Last hurrah
after Charlotte.
Kelly Tripucka. For people who don't know, he used to have these like curly hair.
He had the perm.
Yeah. He was a shooter. Like he was a natural scorer.
He's a Jersey kid.
I didn't know that.
He's a Jersey kid, man. I played against him in some Jersey Shore League. So,
what, down our shore?
Yeah, no, not down in Avalon, Seattle.
Yeah.
No, like more like up like mid-state. Like they had great runs up there. Yeah, some very famous pickup games, and Tripucka was up there. So I don't even know that he's the guy I'm replacing. I wasn't even told that. Here's all I knew. I flew in. I landed at the airport. I get picked up by a member of the that worked for the team. She was an interpreter. She's driving me to my apartment. You got an apartment? Tomorrow will be practice. You just rest today.
Where was the town? So it was a 3-hour drive?
Yeah, probably 3 hours by train, like 2 to 3 hours by train to get there. I don't even know about driving. I never drove to
so
Paris.
She got you
She picked me up at the airport.
Paris.
And where I flew in and drove me to where we were going, to Limoges. She drove me.
Is that south of France?
I believe it is. It's been so long, man. It's been like 30-something.
No, I'm in love.
Geographically, I think it was like southwest, if I recall. But we go to the apartment, and she's got the key, and she opens the door, and we walk in, and Kelly Tripucka is sitting in the living room with his feet up on the coffee table.
No.
I swear to you. And he's
Are
like,
you serious?
Can I help you? like, hey, man, I was told I was replacing you. Like, I don't know what's going on, man. He's like, is that right? So at this point, the communication had broken down. He's like, can you do me a favor, man? Can you just give me one night to get things sorted here, and then this will be your place tomorrow. I'll be out of here, I promise, if that's what it's going to happen. But so the girl's like, hey, we'll take you to a hotel. So they put me in a hotel for the night. So the next day, he's gone. And
my God! You ever talk to him?
No. Moved into his apartment. He left all kinds of clothing there. The sweats were a little bit big for me because he's like 6'7".
Yeah.
So he had all this. I think it was like Adidas, if I recall. He was like an Adidas guy. And it was like lining up his closet. And I'm like going, he left all these sweatsuits. I'm like trying on Kelly Tripucka's
I like it, man.
So anyway, so now I'm like, okay, my head's spinning. And I'm like, okay, now we're going to practice. So she's taking me to practice. I walk in the gym. And guess who the other American player was?
Who?
You'll never guess. Michael Brooks.
What?
Michael Brooks.
People don't know Michael Brooks, LaSalle
legend.
Oh, my God.
National Player of the Year.
Are you got to be kidding me?
Lottery pick. He had a terrible knee injury early in his career, and his career kind of didn't. NBA career wasn't. But he still had great years. But
he was at Clippers.
Yeah. Correct, in Denver too.
Yeah.
And I see him. And, of course, we had known each other because of the LaSalle connection over the years, but never really knew him well. He had been playing for that team for a few years. And
Get outta
he was
here.
basically considered the best American in France.
Yeah.
And he was mid-30s at this point.
Wow.
So I'm like, and this dude still was in incredible shape, ran like a deer, like he had a great baseline jumper, like.
Yeah,
So
he was
here we are.
He was a hell of a ball player, man.
But so I'll tell you one last quick story about this. So this is how it went. We had a Yugoslavian coach who didn't speak a word of English or French. 8 French players, me and Michael Brooks. So he had a guy next to him about 4 feet tall that was his interpreter. So this guy would bark out in Yugoslavian, like he'd bark out at practice. Then he'd pause, and this guy would then say it in French. And then one of the French players would tell me. So
Get out of here.
So this dude would rant for 3 minutes. And then what would he say? And he'd give me like, he just said, yeah, we need to get back on defense. I'm like, the dude just talked for 3 minutes. Like, what are you talking about? And they basically gave me an indication, like, unless I heard my last name, because you know how to say that. Don't worry about it. Like, he's not talking to you, right? So I'm like, okay. And Michael Brooks, by the way, spoke fluent French. He'd been there for 3 years.
Oh, right, right.
But he wasn't, like, helping me out too much, man. I was like, come on, Mike. Like, what's going on? He's like, listen, man, I just keep my head down over here. I just play. I don't worry about these guys. He'd tell me on a team who not to trust. Don't trust these guys. Like, you'd be in a locker room, and these 2 guys start talking French right in front of you and laughing and stuff. Like, he just, I don't trust these guys, whatever. It was a wild thing, man.
Oh, my God.
And then we're favored to win the whole thing because we're the number 1 team in France. And
So what were you? Did he befriend you though?
Oh yeah, he did. But he lived in a secluded spot, man, way out from town. And like I never was over his house. Now I was only there for
that's weird.
February to May.
Okay.
Okay, and then I was done.
Okay.
I came back and I went back to NBA Summer League, and then I was in the league shortly after that.
Right.
He stayed there. And I don't know if he finished in Limoges or where he went. Of course, he passed. He's passed since then.
Oh, did he?
Michael Brooks passed away.
Yeah.
So he kind of very much kept to himself. He was great at practice. We'd go out and get dinner and stuff like that together. But he was very much kept to himself for the most part. And just like keep my head down and just play whatever. And I was like, okay. But he did tell me one thing. He's like, listen, man, these people in this town are crazy about this team. I'm just telling you right now. He goes, well, we're going to win a lot of games. It's going to be great. But when we lose, it's a problem. I'm like, really? And I'll tell you how that manifested itself. So I'm there by myself.
Oh, my God. Andrew, is this not outrageous?
I'm there by myself. I'm in this apartment every day. 2 practices a day, 6 days a week, the entire time I was there. That's what they were doing.
2 practices a day?
Every day. Played a game on Saturday.
What?
2 practices, even on Sunday. 2 3-hour practices.
After a game?
3-hour practices. Twice a day, the entire time I was there for 4 months.
What kind of install was it? Like what was it?
Here's why. Because the reason I brought this story up is because what you said about how now, like the way they view it in Europe, back then it wasn't that way. They looked at it like this: we are so far behind the Americans.
That we'll outwork them.
We're going to practice twice as long, twice as hard. And you know what? I had the worst shin splints I've ever had in my life because the floor was like concrete in our gym. It was just not modernized. But I've never been in that kind of shape. So when I came back that summer, went to the summer leagues.
Oh, you could probably run forever.
I was running these dudes into the ground. I was never been in that shape in my life because of the way they were doing. And it was weird stuff. Some of the drills were like so hard.
Really?
Oh yeah. And one day we like, hey, today we're not gonna scrimmage this morning. We're gonna go up. We're gonna go up and we're gonna do mountain biking in the mountains, like Tour de France, or going up hills. Tomorrow we're gonna jog, and you're like jumping over boulders, running down hills. Like seriously. And I'm going, this is insane. This is what the kind of stuff they believe in. Running sprints with guys holding your wrists behind you while you're running. So I swear to you, suicide. Like some of the drills
makes sense because that's the parachute.
Yeah, the resistance. Basically, it was the pre-parachute, but it was meanwhile they didn't understand they were dislocating guys' shoulders.
Yeah, like you can't. Right.
But anyway, so
oh my God,
he says to me, he goes, listen, they're going to treat you. They're going to treat you different when you lose.
What time was the practice?
We would go like 8 to 11, and then we'd come back like 4 to 7. The morning, I'm telling you right now, that morning session, I guarantee you every single one of those, I had to get up 500 shots in that practice. And then the night was just nothing but scrimmaging. And here's the thing, we only had 10 players.
What?
10 guys on the team.
Oh, my God.
And there was a 15-year-old kid on that team. He's a pro. And he played my spot. So I'm going against this kid every day in practice. He's 15 years old. And, of course, I'm working this kid like you have no idea. But here's the thing. He was in such great shape, right? But he didn't really know how to play. So,
right.
So the first day, I'm chasing this kid around.
How do I not know this story?
And I started to realize he doesn't have any idea how to play. So I started to realize, like, I was chasing him around a court, and like we'd go through the lane 3 or 4 times in one possession, chasing this dude because he could shoot. Then I started to realize, you know what? I'm just gonna wait under the basket and see if he comes back like a boomerang because he doesn't know what he's doing. So he'd run, he'd go out. I wasn't even guarding him, but he didn't know that. Because he was just so intent on moving.
Oh, my God.
Sure enough, here he comes. Right out of the lane. Right back here. I pick him up. So I started to realize I was saving energy. I'm like, oh, this is great. I don't have to wear myself out because he's going to come right back to me. But I'm going to tell you this story. So at the train station in Limoges, in the town, a small little train station, they had a little stand in there where they sold, goods, and they had USA Today newspaper.
Right.
That was my link to the States.
Yeah.
And every day I'd go in there.
It was probably the next day or
It was way off. But they had like 3 of them a day. Right. And I'd go in there, and then this woman knew I was on the team, right? And we're winning games, and she had that puppy, bam, every day, bam. No, we couldn't even speak to each other. I'd point, paper. It was great. Get some fat food. Paper. We lost. We won like 10 straight games. We lose a game. I swear to God, I go in there. She's never seen me before. I'm going, no, like the thing, the paper, like the paper right there. She doesn't have any idea. And I'm like, what in the world? I went home. By this point, my wife had joined me over there. I go, weirdest things has happened. Like this woman, I see her every day. She acts like she'd never seen me before. And of course, I've put it all together because we lost.
Oh, my God.
We lost the game. No paper this week. No paper. It's like the soup Nazi on the Seinfeld. No soup for you. It's literally
USA Today for you.
That's literally what it was. And I'm like, oh. We start winning again. Paper's there. Lose, no paper. That's how it went the rest of the year, man. And we,
oh, my God.
The other thing Michael Brooks told me, we played the championship series. It was the best out of 5. And we were
how was the crowd? Were they wild?
Outrageous. I've never experienced that sort of a rabid fandom in my life. Flags waving, lower ball, faces painted, chants, cheer. The entire game, they do not stop at the chants. It goes on forever, man, the whole place. And back then, it was a little different because, like, you could smoke.
Oh, yes.
So you'd look up, and there was, like, smoke in the upper half of the arena. Like, you're down there playing, this game. First pregame meal. I sit down with these guys. I've never met any of these guys. I sit down, long table. We're all eating together at this meal. Coaching staff, everybody. There's about 6 bottles of red wine on the table.
Yes!
We're getting ready to go play a game. I'm like, we're going to play tonight, right? Like, because you break these babies open, anybody knows me, like, I'm going to have some wine. Like,
yeah.
But I was like, no, man, I got to play tonight. You kidding me?
Yeah, like, you can't.
They didn't think anything of it. They're a couple guys taking drags or going outside. I'm like, this is insane. This is insane. They also brought me, everybody got the same meal. You didn't have a choice. It was a steak, and they brought mine. It looked like it had not even touched a grill. I'm like, no. I kept cutting it open. Bien cuit, they told me. Michael, bien cuit means well done. Bien cuit, just say that. Bien cuit. I said like 5 times. They kept bringing it back. Bien cuit, bien cuit, bien cuit. Like, it's not enough. These guys, they dug right in right off the bat. I'm like, no, this is crazy. I'm like, this is going to be a problem. But I went out there and I did my thing. I got my 25, and everybody was happy.
I'm sure they had espresso at the end of it.
A little espresso. Everybody was happy. You know what's crazy though? Here's what's nuts. This coach, right? Bozidar Malkovich. He was a legendary coach in Europe. And
he's from Croatia. Right. Yugoslavia back then. Yeah, sure.
So one day, the interpreter says he wants to, through a French player tells me he wants to pick me up and take me to practice, to talk. I'm like, all right. Because he found out he spoke Spanish and I could speak enough that I was the only player on the team that could actually talk to the coach. So now we'd be at practice and I'd start talking Spanish to him.
No!
And he'd talk back to me, and the French players were outraged. They were outraged that I was having these communications because now they think we're talking about them. Like, you guys thought you were talking about me. Now look at this, huh? Now he's talking about who? And it was like, so now he and I had this bond, this connection, and it was great because he was really, really tough, hardcore dude, hard to even get to know. Anthony, we were at games. If we were up and he pulled the starters with 5-6 minutes, he would expect you to go down behind the baseline and run sprints sideline to sideline in the arena until the game ended.
What?
So one game, I was like the last guy out of the game, and I wasn't paying attention to where those guys went. And I sit down on the bench. There's nobody there. And I'm like, where's everybody? And the one trainer could speak English. And he's like, oh, they're over there. And I look up, and I see these 4 heads like running behind the stands. They're running sideline sprints while the game was going on because they weren't going to go back in the game. Like this is where they were at psychologically about what they needed to do.
Insane.
Anyway, there's a lot of stories there, but it's
no, my God, that's insane.
It put enough money in my bank account that and it made me a better player and like definitely understood work ethic better. But it no question bought me time to pursue my dream.
Yeah.
And then make it to the league, which I did.
Because then you can go back and play.
Sure, because I was at the point, man. I was like, I got to go start making some money and get it all my life, like one way or another. And that bought me some time that summer and that summer I didn't make a team, but that winter I got picked up by the Dallas Mavericks, and that was it for me. I was in the league the rest of the time.
That's wild. Real quick, so when you're there, and you're traveling, you just played all French teams? Did you play any other? When
I was there, we only played French teams, but they had something. But I missed it the time of year that they would do it. I got over there later in the year.
Right.
Earlier in the year, they would do like the Euro Cup where they would play other countries play each other. But we didn't do that when I was there. I just went over, played my season, played the playoffs. Michael said to me, "Listen, it was 2-2, best of 5." Last game, championship game, series. Right, we're at 2-2 with this team, and he's like, "Listen, I'm going to tell you something."
Who was it? You remember? Now you know where my mind's going with this story. This story is, I think it's a great.
I don't remember the name of the team, but he said, "Listen, make sure you have your stuff ready to go to get to the airport.
What
if we lose this game?" He's like, as I was telling you right now, they might not let you go. And I'm like, dude, you're scaring me. Like, stop. He's like, no, I'm serious. Like, make sure.
Like, what are they going to do?
I said, dude, they owe me money. Like, they owe me money, like playoff bonuses. He's like, yeah, that's your agent's job. Leave. He'll get that. Don't worry about that. He'll get that. Like, you can't stick around for that. I'm telling you right now, because I've seen it happen.
Like, what happens?
I don't know. Like, they're going to be like a blockade. Like, you can't get out of your apartment to get to the airport. Like, they're going to be angry, man. Like, their lives depend on this. You think Philadelphia sports fans are bad, dude? Try Limoges, France. We ended up losing the game, by the way. We lost that game. I did my thing, but we lost the game. I had a big night, but we lost.
So what was it?
So I left. I got out the next morning. I flew back to the States.
But they weren't mad at you because you played well.
They weren't mad at me, as it turns out. But they did owe me money. And they wired it to me. I got the money. But that was that. That was it, man. That was my experience.
Did you ever think about going back?
No, I didn't have to because I got to the league that year. If I hadn't got to the league that year,
did
I
Michael Brooks stay?
Michael stayed. And I think I heard he went on beyond Limoges at some point, played somewhere else after that. But he was like a legend. But when I got there, what he was doing over there for the number of years he had been there, and everybody kind of lost track of where Michael was. Nobody knew where Michael was.
I mean, legends. I mean, Michael Brooks, a legend.
Yeah, man. So that was my experience.
What a story!
Yeah.
What a fabulous story. All right, it is hour number 2. So we get into hour number 2. Let's get a little bit of an update on what's going on, and then we're going to go through tomorrow's games. I want to go through a little NBA before we do that as well. So Marquette has opened it up, as you saw.
Yes,
they're gonna go on and beat Western Kentucky.
Mow them down.
Yeah, that's where you know how good they are, right? Clemson is up 12 on New Mexico. That's approaching halftime, and man, UConn, 46-13. It's not even halftime.
Well, and one thing you knew going in, you knew Danny Hurley is like. Just looking at his approach and all the media that he's done leading up to this,
crazy.
He's the type of guy that is absolutely not going to allow a complacent second.
Yes,
with that group and making them understand it's all about habits. So poor Stetson is catching that wrath right now. 46-13. Late first. The line on that game was like 27 or something.
27.
So
they're coughing already.
I'd say cash out. Yeah. Get a little bit of that
back. Oh, my God. That's incredible. All right. So we'll get into it all. Don't forget, we talk about the Bet Parx app and all the stuff you can do because we have a big weekend ahead of us. Don't forget, tonight, if the night games, again, I love Nebraska tonight. We'll give you some more picks as the show goes on. We'll get into tomorrow's games. BetParx.com is all the details. In fact, new users, join me, download the BetParx Sportsbook app now. You make a winning $10 sports bet. You get $125 in sportsbook bonus back. Again, the BetParx app, easy to use, simple. It's a whole thing. It's great. It's a great offer to get started. You got to be 21 in PA, New Jersey, Maryland, Ohio. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. You love to play. You play to win. You bet. BetParx. And don't forget also here at the South Philly location, which is right on Packer Avenue. Coming up this Thursday, we have baseball. And Legs is a great baseball player. We have Phillies opening day. It's going to be a big party. Come join PHLY Phillies at the Parx Racing Sportsbook on Packer Avenue to watch opening day. We're going to have a special live pregame show. We'll be here to watch party, the whole thing. There'll be ticket giveaways. So if you want to go to the game, you're looking for tickets, make sure you come here. There'll be raffles, and you can register right now. In fact, you should do that. allphly.com under the events tab, okay? So check that out. All right, one of the things I want to get to you with is a little Sixers. Sixers on the West Coast, all right?
Yep.
And I kind of want to get into tonight's LeBron tonight. And what is it when you're playing, and I know it's regular season, but like, how do you look at tonight when you're going against the Laker team? And is there still extra juice for that team?
Definitely. And I think the one thing that you know for a fact when you play the Lakers, you're going to get a wildly inconsistent team.
Yeah.
Right. When they play well and they're engaged, they're still a good team, and they're still a team that you look at and say, man, you really want to play them?
Yes.
Like, is your reward for being, if you're a 1, 2, or 3 and you're, say Minnesota or you're Oklahoma City, like, and that's your reward, like, you're going to get that team, the Lakers with LeBron and AD, if they're playing well. But there's just a lot of nights in the regular season where they're just not. And you can see it even, like, just look at their schedule. It's just like win 1, lose 2, win 2, lose 1, win 3, lose 2. Like, that's been the whole season. And a lot of it hinges on Anthony Davis, who's actually, he's had a pretty good stretch here.
He's had a nice stretch, actually.
He's been unbelievably dominant, man. D'Angelo Russell's been great, too, by the way. This is some of the best basketball he's played in his career. So, yeah, you still have juice. It's the Lakers, man. It's LeBron. And it's the Lakers are playing for a lot right now. So you're going to get, hopefully you're going to get, if you're the Sixers, you're going to get a juiced game,
Knowing, and how do you approach knowing what's going on with Joel? Like the whole season, relies on LeBron. So, on Joel. How do you reconcile, if you're the Sixers, like what are you doing to make sure you're ready if and when the big man comes back?
It's hard, man. I dealt with this a little bit in Washington one year. We did have a similar situation with Chris Webber, who was like an all-star talent at the time. He's our best player. He had a lot of shoulder issues, and he finally one year, it was in and out, back and forth. We were waiting, and you kind of do always have like one eye on the sideline when that guy's in that boat. Like, when's he going to come back? And then finally, he shut it down. And then it kind of changes your approach with everybody on the team, like, because he's not coming back. Like when Embiid's kind of over there and he's practicing, and they're saying he's progressing great. It sounds like he's going to try to make a go at this.
No, I think he is.
That's what it looks like. Definitely going to happen. So now you're thinking like, hey, you get a boost because you're thinking like, let's just tread water, let's just keep our head above water, and this is going to be the greatest X factor ever inserted into an NBA playoff scenario.
What do you
getting
do
a guy like that back?
Well, yeah, and what do you do with a prepare? Because again, the game changes when he's there. So, is there anything you can do to almost prepare to run when he comes? For when he comes back.
I'm gonna be honest, no, because he's such a unique force.
Yeah.
He's a gravitational force for the basketball all over the floor. Yeah. Everything goes through him. You can't replicate that. You can't start to play that way because you're going to lose games, and they can't afford to do that right now. So no, they've changed their style of play. Obviously, it's going to be Maxey-centric, like how they're going to play and play off of his speed and play off of his push, and hopefully you get enough shot makers on a given night to give yourselves a chance to win. But it's going to be totally different when you can now look, which also presents a little bit of a challenge because it is so different. And it's so much that you have to now assimilate to when a guy like that comes back. that it can affect your flow a little bit without question. And he's he's going to probably have some stamina issues and everything else. So will he be playing at peak level? Now, the one thing he will be is unbelievably fresh.
Right.
Those legs will be charged. And so he's going to feel great.
Who was he? He told me the story the other day
Curry.
about.
It was Curry.
Yeah.
Curry came back. He was on an unbelievable stretch going into the playoffs because he missed like 6 weeks. He's like, he never felt better.
No, you're so spry.
You are. And everybody else is kind of, you're sore and tired, man, by that time of the year. And you get this guy coming in with fresh legs, but his stamina won't be great. His efficiency will probably be there because he takes shots in his wheelhouse that are unstoppable, and he'll get to those spots. I just don't know what his minutes restriction will be and, how that will affect anything. But listen, if he can come back and play, I don't know what their target number of games is, if they even have any for him to play before they would say this is a smart thing to do. Yeah, you're going to let him play 2 games and then play a play-in game? I don't know if they would do that. But if you're talking about getting in 5, 6, 8 games, if that's what it ends up being, he has a chance to play through some things before that would start. The question is, where are you going to be at that time? Like, they still have a shot to get out of the play-in, which would be huge.
Oh, my God.
Right? Because then you won't have to worry about that one-off with, you lose and you go home. Or if you're 7-8, you got 2 chances, I guess. But and they're not going to fall below 8. So they'll have 2 opportunities if they are in the play-in to win 1 game. But then you're in the 8th spot against Boston.
Yeah.
So getting 6 would be an enormous thing.
It would be huge. I mean, the last thing, listen, and that Boston has tormented them.
I know.
It just, we still have this fragile psyche. I mean, what Sixer fans have been through, you want to talk about cruel and unusual punishment.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm a process guy from way back. I believed in it. I thought it was the only way to kind of retool and just hit the reset button and try to build it correctly. And obviously there were mistakes made along the way. And we talk about Bridges and, which was probably one of the gravest mistakes that he's a Sixer for an hour, exactly what you need, and you trade him away. But, ultimately it's just been one craziness after another, crazy story. It's been injuries. It's been bad coaching. And now you finally feel like you're past it.
Yeah.
If you could if the big guy could just come back and stay healthy, you got a real shot.
And it looked like he was rolling along. He looked very happy.
He did.
He's got great chemistry with Maxey. It's different. It's a different style. And I think that suited Embiid really well. I think the overall chemistry and energy with the team, he made a coaching change too, which affects that. I just felt like it seemed like it was just more light this year. It was heavy. I felt like in the past.
Well, was that James Harden?
It was Harden. It was Simmons before that. It was both. I mean, it was both of those guys. And it definitely. I felt like it in some ways when Harden would go into those places where, and here's what was always weird to me about Harden, and this to go back to the Boston story. You saw Tatum flip the switch in Game 6 against them, right? He was 1 for 14 from the field, and he bangs out 3 threes to end that game.
Dude, that's still.
You remember that, right?
To remember,
of course,
it's etched in my mind. It's indelible.
And then Game 7, they of course annihilate him. Right? Yeah. So here's that told me that night. I'm like, that's okay. Star players are capable of flipping a switch, even when they had that kind of night.
They were on the ropes. They had them on the ropes the whole freaking game.
Harden, when he headed down that road, never flipped that switch.
No.
Tell me right now, as a Sixers fan,
or horrible,
as a Sixers fan, because I don't live and die with it the way you do, right? I just don't. I'm covering the whole league.
No, of course.
So, because I feel this way that I could tell 6 minutes into the game,
totally,
where he's at,
totally,
and it's not going to turn around.
It's a flat line.
Tonight won't turn around.
No,
and the problem with that is he's got the ball all the time. If he's,
I said that a million times.
If he's a shot making 2 that's spotting up a lot of, and you can tell he's lost confidence. All right, that's fine. We'll figure out another way to get those minutes. He's got the ball every trip. So that's my point. He can't flip the switch. And I think what I would see would be when Embiid saw him like that, his body language was different.
His body language became his.
It demoralized him.
Yes.
Because he felt like he's out there by himself.
Yes.
And this is supposed to be my co-star.
And people would blame him.
I know.
And go, well, the big guy, he mopes, he does this. But in reality, and it's why I was pleading during that series. I plead with Doc, play Harden off the ball.
Yeah.
Give Maxey the ball.
Yeah.
Because listen, obviously Maxi's not the distributor that Harden is. I mean, Harden's an incredible distributor, right? But what Maxi does is that he plays with joy and he never stops, right? Like he's relentless. So even if he's not shooting the ball well, you know what? You can hide Harden. Like you're able to hide Harden if Maxi's on ball.
And that's what I think everybody was pretty much calling for and screaming for. Look, I got it right here just to remind people. Game 1, 17 for 30, 7 for 14 from the 3, 45 points. Harden, I thought one of the best performances of his career.
Yeah, it was incredible.
Now they were without Embiid going up to Boston for Game 1, and I do think it almost was like he played with a nothing to lose mentality.
Totally.
The pressure was gone because no one expected him to win.
Right.
So they win the game. Now Game 2. You're like, okay, and Embiid didn't play in that game either. You got expectations now.
He didn't do anything in Game 2.
2 for 14.
Yeah.
0 for 6 from the 3.
And the whole team was not good.
They were terrible. They got blown up by 34 points.
Yeah.
All right, so now let's change venues, come back home. 3 for 14. 41 minutes.
In Game 3.
5 turnovers.
Yeah, it was
Game
a
3.
Friday night.
They lost by 12.
Yeah, it was a Friday night. He was not good. And, of course, the Game 4 was this Sunday, and he's great.
Game 4, I called it at the time the next day. I thought was the single most significant performance of James Harden's career. Because I thought for him to come through in that way when he struggled those previous 2 games.
My God.
So basically he goes, he had 42 points, 9 assists, 8 rebounds, 16 of 23.
And he made the baseline jump shot.
Correct, the corner 3.
Yeah.
Now it's 2-2. Now, Game 5, he wasn't great, but he managed the game well. He had 10 assists, 2 turnovers. He was 4 for 8, didn't take a lot of shots. 17 points, had a decent game. They win the game by 12.
Well, Embiid was great in that game.
He was. And they're up 3-2, and then Game 6 happens.
And this is my greatest as a following his team and the whole thing. And one of the worst devastating losses
for sure.
was Game 6
definitely.
because they had time and time again. Boston was on the ropes. They were begging you to take the game. They were all, if you remember, there was some sniping between those two. There was talk about Brown Tatum and the whole thing. And they were begging to be beat that game.
Mazzola was also being scrutinized because of some late game decision making and stuff. And he was going through it for the first time. Super young coach, got the team right before the season.
Correct.
When Udoka got fired.
Yeah.
So this was his first postseason.
Yeah.
Right, everybody was questioning him.
Yeah.
And then Game 6 happened. Tatum goes 5 for 21 in that game, and you at home in Philly, and you don't win the game. And it wasn't just Harden, man. I mean, he was 4 for 16,
awful.
But Maxey was 9 for 20. Had 26, and Embiid was 9 for 19, 26 and 10. Those are not bad nights in a playoff game.
No, it was Harden.
But it was James Harden, yeah.
Yeah, he was awful in that game.
But the whole reason we started talking about this in the first place was the weight that I've always felt like him and the way he was carrying himself on those nights was such a drain on Embiid. And I think that's been removed, and that's why I felt really good and optimistic.
Correct.
I thought this team had the best chance to make a legitimate finals run since Embiid's been there.
Yeah.
And then he gets hurt.
Yeah. No, it's a shame because I agree with you. There was talk, is Embiid unhappy because Harden's gone? It's like, no. I know that Joel respected Harden. The whole. One thing about Harden is, he gets a lot of respect around the league.
Definitely.
Guys love him and they respect him. But it's different, man. He's a handful, man. He dominates the basketball. You got to play his way. It's tough to play that style. What's going on? Look at the Clippers. Look at that team. Seriously.
I'm going to take you back to a phone call you and I had. I did your show from the Philadelphia airport the day the Harden trade happened.
Yes.
Do you remember this?
Yeah.
He's like, dude, you want to come on? I said, listen, I just landed. I'm at the airport.
Yeah.
But as I'm walking in my car, I'll call you. So I did. And I don't know if you remember what I said to you that day. We were both excited about it, obviously. You're bringing in a talent like that, right? You got rid of Simmons. That's the most important.
Right. You weren't going to get that game chip. You needed to take the chip. That's why I'll always argue that, hey, listen, Morey took a shot. I don't blame him for taking a shot.
No, not at all. And I said the same thing to you. But I remember I did say to you in that call, I said, but there are things
Yeah.
that come with him.
Yes. Yes.
With his track record
Yes.
in big games.
Yes.
I said
Yes.
this is a thing.
Yeah.
I'm not making this
Yeah.
up. And I listed like 5 examples of that in Houston.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is a real thing that hopefully he can put behind him. And now that he's maybe with Embiid, he won't have to put that much pressure on himself in those situations. But I said, this is great.
Yes,
but,
you did.
But
I remember distinctly.
And it wasn't just this postseason either, by the way. It was also when they lost to Miami.
Well, and you know what
Toronto.
the two things
With Simmons,
right?
but-
If you go back to the Miami loss and then the Boston Game 7, right? You look at those two games. The similarities were Harden quit.
Yeah.
In both those games. Like, that's the one thing that to this day, I don't understand.
But,
If a player of that ilk, how do you just quit?
Well, it's I think for me, the way I would describe it would be one thing you can't do as a player, especially a star player, you can't change how you play. It's like if you're just off, let's say you're a raw scorer. And, in a given night, it's a big game, and you go 5 for 26. You had a rough night, but you played exactly the same way that you play every night, and tonight didn't go in. Now, look, you still might get questioned. Did the pressure affect you? But the one thing you're not going to say is you turn shots down. That's where Harden was blowing my mind, because he would turn the corner on a ball screen, get into the lane, and it was an obvious shooting situation. Because he's got space in front of him for that little floater he'd shoot with the left hand, or get to the rim and get into somebody's chest, and he'd get there, and he's looking everywhere but the rim. And the ball's coming out, and it just told you right there, like his mind is fried right now.
Yeah.
And that's
that was
what
never,
you can't overcome.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we talk about superstars and always playing the same way. That's Iverson, right? Like, Iverson, whether he was 4 for 21 or, 15 for 28, he's playing the same way.
And I think that's Maxey.
Yes.
Maxey's got the same bounce.
Yeah.
No matter what. And doesn't mean he's going to play great every night.
Yeah.
But he played the same way.
Yeah.
And I think any other co-star, like Embiid, you can live with that, man. Just please don't. Like, I remember going back to Houston, the one game, they played the Spurs, and it was game 6, and they're up 3-2. And the Spurs sat Kawhi because he was a little bit banged up. Basically, Popovich conceded the game. It was in Houston. Conceded the game. And James Harden led the league in scoring that year. He averaged like 35 points a game. And James Harden took 2 shots in the first half. And they're down 20. And I remember Mike D'Antoni sitting on the bench at halftime, just kind of blankly staring at the court. And I know he's thinking the same thing I was. Like,
what are you
how
doing?
am I supposed to win now?
Exactly.
Like, James, we only know one way to play, dude.
Yeah.
It's like high ball screen every trip.
Yeah.
Or ISO.
Yeah.
That's their whole offense.
Yeah.
And then, right, it was.
Yeah,
it was,
I know.
It was set of screen. It was like Capella, right? I think it was. Like set of screen, dive, 3 shooters, and Harden go.
Yeah.
Do what you want to do every trip. And now you're literally not going to shoot? How are we supposed to overcome that? And they lose the game. Of course, they lose the series. And I'll never forget it. And, he completely disappeared.
It was amazing.
And so, look, this is all water under the bridge. He's with the Clippers now. He's actually found a good lane. He's playing well.
But tell me about them. So let's look at we're talking about the NBA playoffs a little bit, and then we'll get back until Saturday to tomorrow's games, the tournament. But let's look at the West, all right? Because the West is fascinating. We know. Listen, the East is going to come down, and we'll get to it. To Boston, and then who challenges Boston? But the West, you bring up Denver as the favorite. I agree. You're right, Denver right now because of how good they are, the defending champs, the whole thing. Where are the Clippers in this? Because the Clippers still, you have a big 3, like a ridiculous big 3 of PG and Kawhi and him.
They struggled early when they made the Harden deal. And I was a little bit skeptical about how it was all going to work. It still had Westbrook there, and then you got Paul George and Kawhi. So I'm like, all right, let's see. And they struggled a little bit. And, but I'm like, I'm never going to make up my mind because I know how impactful that is trying to figure that out. It's going to take time. And they started playing great. And at one point, it looked like not only were they the clear challenger to the Nuggets, they might actually be able to beat the Nuggets. Like, that's how good they looked. Kawhi was every night looked so good. He looked like he did in the year they won it in Toronto.
Yeah.
Paul George was playing great. They were, for the most part, they were healthy at the time. And now, look, Kawhi is still playing really well, But I also do start to wonder, man, a dude that's had that many injuries, there's a little bit of fatigue setting in here late in the year. They've had injuries galore. Westbrook's been out for a stretch. Paul George was out. They've gone 8-7 in their last 15. So they're basically a 500 team in their last 15 games. Now, you look up, and they're still in the 4 spot. New Orleans is right on their heels in that 4-5 matchup. I have a feeling they'll probably end up 4th and play either the Pelicans or the Mavericks or the Suns in the first round. And then with the right to play, I think probably Denver gets the 1 seed when it's all said and done. But I don't know that because they're in a dogfight with Minnesota and Oklahoma City for the 1 seed. But I think, look, the Clippers are dangerous, but they definitely don't look right now as we sit here the way they did a month ago.
What are they missing?
They got all the depth in the world. They got everything you need.
I mean, they stole everybody.
They've
right?
got all the depth you need. They've got two legit star offensive players. You got an energy guy in Westbrook. You got Harden, a decision maker. You got 3 more than serviceable centers.
Right.
With Zubac, Tyson, Plumlee. You got a shooter in Powell. You got Terrence Mann as a jack of all trades. You got pretty much everything you need. I don't think they need anything.
And I'm trying to figure out what is their problem.
I think the problem with some of these teams, and they're not the only one, I do think there are something to be said about veteran teams that have been around. They've been around a while, man. It's just like the grind of the regular season. It's just like, can you get up every night? And do you need to get up every night? You don't. Even Denver this year went through a stretch. It was obvious it didn't mean as much as it did last year in the regular season because now they're champions.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, we got that under our belt.
Yeah.
Well, and guess what? Who's tightened it up more than any team since the All-Star break? Denver. They're absolutely precisely carving people up every night now and reminding you how good they are and how good Jokic is and the guys around. They all fit so perfectly together. They did it again last night against the Knicks. They played a great game against the Knicks last night. So now they're tightened it up because it's the playoffs right around the corner. But they're not going to do that in December and January when you just won a championship. And I think the Clippers, even though those guys haven't won except for Kawhi, it's still a bunch of dudes in their 30s.
Oh, my God. They know the deal. They know it comes down to, 8 weeks.
I just described the Lakers, too. You think the Lakers care that much about the regular season?
No.
They don't, man. It's a grind. It's a grind. Now, a team like Oklahoma City?
Yeah, well,
25 and under in their starters. They're oldest guys, 25 years old.
They're loving it.
And they're like, you know what? We need to get home court. We need to keep winning games. Like, we need every advantage we can get because we've never gone through this before. Minnesota's the same way. What have they won? They've done nothing.
No.
Boston, actually, to me.
Surprising, yeah.
But think about it. They've come up short over and over. Are you going to take the regular season with some sort of complacency?
They are a lot like Denver last year.
Definitely.
Milwaukee before they win it. Because you look at Milwaukee's another team, right? Like, listen, Milwaukee's a good basketball team.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's all said and done. It'll probably be them and Boston. The last two standing.
I mean, you're pairing Dame and Giannis as Middleton. I mean, I don't know how, first of all, I'm shocked that they went with Doc.
I was surprised by that, too. Like, if you're going to make the move, first of all, dude's 30-13.
I know.
So, listen, he probably has, he probably has a legitimate basis for a lawsuit.
Yeah, I still
you hired me to do a job. I'm in second place. I'm 30-13.
Yeah.
I'm a rookie coach.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? But clearly they didn't think, and they were struggling defensively, and I think they saw it. And you know what else? They looked at the other coaches that he's going to have to get through, Adrian Griffin.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, you might have to go up against Mazzulla, who's been through it one time now, but had questions last year. But now I think different level coach. You're going to have to go through a Tom Thibodeau, an Eric Spoelstra,
Nick Nurse,
Rick Carlisle. These are the guys you're going to have to go against, right? In the Eastern. So I just think they look, and then you got West. Look at all those guys.
Yeah.
All those coaches. So I think they're thinking you know what?
So your answer's Doc?
That's the thing. I'm surprised they went with a guy that has as much that he carries around with them from postseason failures. Like you're bringing it. This team is. If you don't win a championship with Damian Lillard and Giannis Antetokounmpo, it is a failure. Every year that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that you blow it up, but then next year you try again. But I'm saying in that year, because you get to ask this question all the time: would it be a failure if the Buck? Yes. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. A colossal failure.
Is it a failure? A colossal failure if Oklahoma City or Minnesota don't win it? No. Because they've never been there.
Right.
But if you put together
Denver, Clippers, whatever,
you put together two players of that caliber on the same team, yes, man. Yes, right now. Win it this year. So they bring in a guy that's had a lot of his own question marks
I know.
In the playoffs, that's what surprised me about it. Not so much that they went with a different coach. If they looked at Griffin and thought he wasn't the guy. And by the way, there's no way you can make that move if you're not having a conversation with Giannis.
Oh, yeah.
And Dame.
Oh, yeah. No,
Obviously.
The two of them are the ones that have no confidence in
right.
them.
And they'll, of course, every star player always say, I have nothing to do with these decisions.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with personnel. All right.
Yeah.
So whatever happened. You bring in Doc. Yeah, I was a little bit surprised by that. But here's the thing I'll say about Milwaukee. Damian Lillard, to me, still has not really reached his full stride with this team. And I think the reason is because, you think about this, it's the first time in his life
he's playing with somebody.
He's not the best player on the team.
Yeah.
Since he was 5, every team was, Dame, it's your team. Do what you want.
Yeah.
And we'll kind of play around you. And don't get me wrong, he was spectacular in Portland. 11 years.
Yeah.
Never really had a true superstar next to him.
Yeah.
And finally, okay, enough's enough. I'm going to go try to win one. But think about it. It's got to be different coming up the court when you're not the best player.
Right. That guy needs the ball in his hand.
That's the thing. Yeah. There's got to be a certain level of deference that you have that changes your instincts.
But because
I think he's trying to work through that.
And I think that's a great perception. But because he's the one, Giannis is the one that needs to take a little bit of a back seat.
And he has said it. And he has said it repeatedly. I want it to be his team. Now, look, I don't think anything could happen to make it his team in our mind. But he's honest when he's
on the floor.
He's honest when he said that. Because you know why? LeBron did the same thing to AD when they won it in the bubble. He said, I want this to be your team. And Anthony Davis was the finals MVP.
Yeah.
And you know why LeBron's? Because LeBron's saying to himself, I'm going to be fine.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to do my thing.
I need him.
I don't care. You could be the first option every trip. I'm still going to do what I have to do.
Right.
And
I'll
we'll manage
mine.
And we'll manage the end of the game. However, Giannis, same way. Giannis, I want it to be your team because I'm still going to end up with 35, 15, and 6.
Yeah.
I know that. So go ahead. Anyway, Kevin Durant's kind of like this. Like, dude, I don't care. You guys can shoot the ball 5, 6, 7, 8 times in a row. I'm going to get 30 efficiently. At some point when this game's over, I'll have my 30.
What's wrong with them?
They are just, number one, I think they don't have, not having a lead guard hurts them because it is very much a sort of, you heard, it's cliche, I hate to use this expression, my turn, your turn, but it is kind of like that when you watch them play. They're all operating independently of each other.
Yeah.
So they're not putting maximum pressure with 3 great offensive players because they complement each other. This isn't Jokic and Murray with the 2-man game.
Sure, perfect, right.
Right? It's not like that. It's different. They're kind of coming up, and who they pick on a possession, who they're going to go to, and then that guy's going to be raw and aggressive. Go get it. It'd be nice if they had a guard that organized.
Yes.
And made the game easier for them.
It's funny you said that because they don't feel there's no cohesiveness, right? Like, so on a great team, there's this feeling of sharing, right? But it doesn't. It feels like it's a big three individuals.
I'm not popular right now in Phoenix because they played the Bucks last Sunday, and the Bucks did not have Giannis Antetokounmpo. It was a big game. It was an ABC game. And look, you don't have Giannis, so you're not going to how much you're going to take out of the game. But it's important for Phoenix that you can't allow what happened to happen. Milwaukee scored 140 points without Giannis Antetokounmpo. They made 24 threes without Antetokounmpo to draw all that attention.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just that they lit it up. I watched the first, I didn't say the whole game. I turned it off midway through the third quarter because it was that embarrassing. Their level of disregard for being there that day was so glaring to me. They had no interest in playing basketball. They didn't communicate with each other. Their shoulders were down. If you got beat off the dribble, it was a layup. Nobody was coming to help you. There was no energy, no physicality. And then they get down 20, and now Durant's kind of shuffling up the floor offensively. I was like, are you kidding me? We're supposed to buy into this as a contender?
Right.
Contenders never act like that.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah.
And certainly not when you're playing a team with a star out, and you give up 140 points.
Yeah, that's just not right.
So,
now, how much is that, again, with the state of the league, right? Like in the regular season.
Yeah.
There was a story that just came up, and it was so interesting, right? Because it was, hey, the NBA has a regular season problem, which we have talked about incessantly, right? But when is it? Like, when do you address it? this, they tried to do the 65 game thing, and what do you do? Like, because we all know the way that the playoffs are set up, it's set up to, take it off.
It saves the season because the regular season can be hard right now to cover. It's hard as a fan to invest, particularly when you start talking about going to games, because you have no idea who's going to play.
It's impossible.
It's really hard.
And you know what else it hurts? In the regular season, like, as a fan, like the Sunday, like growing up, when you and I growing up, Sunday afternoon after football was all about Lakers and Sixers and Celtics and Pistons.
No, it's like I give this, I give the same kind of pep talks to NBA fans all the time because they're just so frustrated with it. There's no real answer to it because here's what's happened is it started with the teams, and San Antonio kind of was the first one, but they came up with the ideology about taking your foot off the gas a little bit in the regular season, individually. Okay?
Yeah.
The problem is now, and if players fought it a little bit in the beginning, they don't fight it anymore.
No.
They don't mind the nights off.
Jordan, you go back, we talked about this off the air, about how Jordan, it could be game 81, and he's playing 38 minutes.
Well, you have to change the ideology of the player that they just.
But Kobe's the same way.
They're just desperate to play every night. Like, look, I'll just use a personal example. Like, I was that kid that cried my eyes out when I was 12 if my Little League game got rained out.
Yeah.
Right? Because I didn't get to play.
Yeah.
Right? Because I wanted to play so bad. And, and in my era, like, I never heard one conversation ever take place about ever between a healthy player or a player at least healthy enough to play with management or the trainer about, hey, man, we're going to give you this one off. There would have been a fist fight.
Yeah. There's no way.
Like, what are you talking about? And it wasn't in the trainer's hands. It was the player's hands. That's not in their hands anymore. The team's taking it out of their hands. But what I'm saying is, like, the guys have gotten comfortable with it.
And now they
don't mind it.
Yeah,
they don't mind being over there in street clothes and, like, kind of having a relaxing
night.
Watch
the game.
And look, and I'm not saying they're all like that. Some guys, it is, you really have to, like, kill them to get them off the court. We still do have some star players like that. But here's the other part. I think it's even more significant than the load management is how long guys come back from the same injuries that guys had 10 years ago. High ankle sprain or whatever it may be. That guy would be back in a much shorter period of time than now. And I'm not saying that was a great thing. All I'm telling you is if you were, a 16-8 player and you got hurt, you'd come back when you could go 12-5 and help, right? Now, if you're a 16-8 player, you're not playing again until you're 16-8 capable. That's what I'm saying. So I actually think that is what fans kind of miss out. It's not, this guy's got a night off, load management. Oh, you get so frustrated. Yeah, you should. I understand that. That's not why there are so many games when you put it on and there's a star player missing. It's because sometimes I forget what the injury was. I have to look it up. What did he hurt?
What was it again?
What was that? Yeah. Oh, it's a wrist. Okay.
And then you never realize, and you never really go, is he really, where is he at right now in his recovery? You know?
So it's a hard season. NBA is a hard season to kind of stay emotionally invested in, but the playoffs will be sensational.
They will be, and they will be great, and we'll talk about it. I did see, but I'm just trying to think about. It's easy to complain about it because I've complained about it for years. What is the solution?
How to fix it?
Right? Like, what is the solution? Is it a way to almost play in intervals? Right? Like, instead of having season, playoffs, off season, do you break it up? Like, do you do a third, a third, and a third?
The only actual solution will never happen, which is less games.
Few games, yeah.
But and I've said this though, so think about it. So now it's 82's on the schedule,
right?
But
65,
70, right?
Yeah.
I contend if you made the season 65, dudes would play 52.
Yeah.
So what's the number?
Yeah.
At some point though, if you played a 40-game season, guess what? You got to come out of the blocks playing.
Yeah.
Because you're not making the playoffs.
So,
but the problem is, I've seen teams. There's been teams in this league that have had 9 and 10 game losing streaks that made the playoffs because it's so long.
I know.
So that internal desire every night that you have to have. It's hard to maintain that in the NBA because guys know, like, as long as we stay in the hunt, we got the playoffs. And the playoffs we can make it happen. So it's not, every team takes that approach, but it's definitely, it's hard, man.
I wonder if there's a way that you could make it, some universities, they go like with a different semester structure.
Yeah.
Right.
The trimester.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, so is there a way to make the season like that, right? Like where you almost have a first half champion and a second half champion and, I don't know.
Well,
like,
you know what they did this year? They said they added the play-in and, the in-season tournament, and it was very successful. And I was super skeptical.
Yeah.
Because I said, I don't know, man. Like, you're going to get guys
going on during football, and
it was early in years. Like,
I didn't really.
The finals of that were in December.
Yeah,
the season just started.
Yeah.
Like, so I was skeptical, but I owned it. When I saw how hard they were playing, I was like, clearly this has worked because there's definitely more juice in these early season games than there would have been. These guys are into this, and I was shocked by it. I really was. And it played out that way, and it was tremendously successful. Now, you had a couple of duds at the end that hurt it, like New Orleans not showing up in the Final Four.
Because we still find our way back here in this place. Like, and it was
because it was too early in the year, and it was like, okay, now what?
And you're in the middle, like you got football going on,
right?
And like, we got to be, and you also have to be honest about early season basketball. You're going to lose the football.
My thing is, I'm curious to see if this has staying power because I think this was the first one.
Right.
It was unique to the players because even the Lakers who won it were all bought in on it.
Yeah.
Like that team. Like, wait a second. We just talked about regular season. I mean that way. But it was like LeBron, I think.
Yeah, let me try to win it.
He wanted to win that. Like the first one.
Yeah.
All right, let me show you what I'm capable of doing when I rise to the occasion.
And I could see him wanting to, like, listen, that puts me down. I've always won the first one.
Check. Yeah, right. But
this is another thing.
Going forward, are they going to be as into it, year after year? One of the things they have to tweak is that they had this scoring margin tiebreaker, and it almost caused like some fights.
Yeah,
because you had guys leaving their starters in.
Exactly.
What if one of those guys goes down?
Right
when he should have been off the court.
Yeah,
and like you saw the situation where they were fouling at the end of the game. It was Chicago and Boston. And I remember Billy Donovan and like Missoula like having words at the scores table because they were like fouling. The Celtics were like fouling someone at the end of the game. Like they were up big.
Right.
And they're like, what is going on?
Like, what are you doing?
This is the NBA protocol.
Right.
And I remember Missoula's like pointing out to me, the tiebreaker, man.
Yeah, we need that.
I know. So it was interesting. But look, anything that gave the regular season more juice, I'm for it, but we'll see if it has staying power.
They need to kind of figure it out. We're live at the South Philadelphia Race and Sportsbook as we hang out. What a day, man. It's a day 2, the Friday of the tournament, always fun. We're going to get back into how we see the games on tomorrow, but I want you to put something on your calendar because here at the Park South Philly, we're right on Packer Avenue in the heart of South Philadelphia. You could throw a football, right, and you could hit the stadium from here. So Thursday, we are having our All Philly show. We'll be here having a blast, man, at the before the opening day. You love baseball.
I do.
You love opening day?
I do love opening day. I'm going to be full disclosure. I was a diehard growing up Orioles fan because I grew up down there.
I know.
Like I'm a Commanders fan. You know that.
Yeah.
And so I was so into the Orioles, and they were good every year. They were always in it. We won a couple World Series. They were so bad for so long, and it's such a long season. You kind of do lose interest. I moved out of the area, so I wasn't going to games anymore. And you kind of lose interest a little bit. Now, I know they were very good last year.
Oh, they're good.
Very disappointing playoff performance, but they won 100 games.
No, they're legit.
Yeah, they're really good again. So maybe I'll jump back on that bandwagon.
No, you should. Yeah, because we're all on the Phillies bandwagon, as you well imagine.
Yeah.
And it's going to be fun. So do yourself a favor. There's going to be drink specials. We're going to have tickets. We're going to do a watch party. It's going to be a blast. So do yourself a favor. Come and hang out with us, man. Before the game, maybe you'll score some tickets here because we're going to do a raffle giveaway. All right? So make sure you do that and hang out with us for that. And I do want to tell you, like for the tournament, the rest of the weekend, this is a great place to hang. It's either here in South Philly or you go up and enjoy the great parks in Bensalem with that amazing sports book that's everywhere. And if you can't get to either place, of course, right here, it's the BetParx app. I have it right on my phone. The only sports betting app that I'll recommend. Live bet on all the tournament action as you watch the game. There's futures. There's all kinds of stuff. New users, join me. Download the BetParx Sportsbook app. You make a winning $10 sports bet, you'll get $125 in sportsbook bonus back. All right, it's really cool. BetParx.com has all the details. The BetParx app, safe, easy, simple to use. It's a great offer to get you started. You got to be 21 in PA, New Jersey, Maryland, Ohio. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. You love to play. You play to win. You bet. BetParx. All right, my brother. So let's go through what's happening today. So Clemson still maintains a double-digit lead over New Mexico. They're up 13. UConn, like we talked about, all over Stetson. Auburn just tipped off. They're up 12-7 early on Yale. Florida up 15-10 early on Colorado. We talked about tonight, Legs. A&M, Nebraska. You know, I like Nebraska in the game. I think you agree?
I do like Nebraska. And I'm interested to see if Vermont can hang with Duke. That could be interesting, at least for, a half or two-thirds of that game. I think Vermont's got a chance offensively to hang in that game. Looking to see Zach Edey tonight, too, against Grambling. I know it's Grambling, but I want to see – because think about what happened last year, right? I mean, Purdue is one of those teams that carries a little bit of that track record, right? And now you got the player of the year in the country. He's been absolutely unstoppable all year. Let's see who can come up with a game plan to kind of change that for them.
I know you want to watch Duke Vermont and see if Vermont gives Duke a sweat. Duke's 12.5. You like Vermont in the game?
Yeah, no, I don't like Vermont to win the game, but I mean, I think they can hang.
Well, it's going to be the cover. The 12.5.
I think they can. I think they can hang around for a while.
Another team that can push it. It's going to be interesting and a fun game. High total. Alabama and Charleston, 4-13 seed. That's
going to be a shootout. Charleston can really score. Alabama can too. I want to see that, a track beat. I think that could be.
Houston, Longwood. Houston, a huge favorite, 23.5. But the way they play defense, you got to like Houston in this.
Yeah, and it's kind of how, UConn started their game. With Stetson. It was like what? It was like 8-0. Immediately. Then it was like 24-4. And now it's now it's 65-37. Yeah. I could see something similar with Houston in this game defensively, although I don't think they got quite the scoring prowess of Connecticut, but I think that their defense could really suffocate that team.
Wisconsin, James Madison. Wisconsin laid 5.5. It's a 12-5 matchup.
Another low total expected. That'll be a lower scoring game. I don't know. I have a feeling James Madison hasn't played anything quite like Wisconsin this year. So 5.5 for Wisconsin, I might be a little low.
Wisconsin can score. That's the one thing about them is that they move the ball. So Wisconsin scores. I like them tonight. I think they're being kind of undervalued here. Utah State, TCU 3.5.
I'm pulling for TCU. My boy Jacoby Coles. Hope he has a big game tonight.
And the nightcap, St. Mary's and the Canyon.
You know who was coaching Grand Canyon before their current head coach? They fired this guy a couple years ago. He was there for about 5 years.
Who?
Dan Marley.
Oh, yes.
Remember?
Yes.
They never quite got to the tournament. They kept losing in the conference tournament.
Yeah.
I had a conversation with him because I was hunting coaching jobs at the time.
Right.
And I thought, this guy, former NBA player, can win a different route. This is kind of what I would be doing. Called him up, and I remember him just telling me about, this is privately funded. It's the most ridiculous, gorgeous campus in the country. Oh, yeah, I
heard the campus is unbelievable,
insane. Right? It's not a hard place to recruit. Now they got a hell of a basketball team. They're 29-4. St. Mary's is really good.
What I like about St. Mary's is they play defense.
They do play defense.
They shoot the three. They play defense.
And, of course, Gonzaga's been their nemesis, but they were able to get past them this year. And now they end up with a 5 seed. I think that could be a good game, though.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
5-12s usually are.
So that'll bring us to tomorrow. And this is, I really want to get it because this is stuff that you can look at for tomorrow. And we have a little knowledge. So I always like the first Saturday and Sunday of the tournament because you have some knowledge that you can go off of. So let's look at it. Arizona, which looked real good on Thursday against Dayton, they're laying 9.5.
Yeah, Arizona. That sounds about right to me. Arizona did look good, man. They were impressive. And they actually
But
had
they're
some
weird because they can look so good,
Yeah.
and then the next thing you know, you turn around and it's a clunker.
Yeah, I mean, they lost to USC like late in the year. And
Right.
USC was a very mediocre team.
Yeah.
And they lost. So it's like I think that's kind of the nature of college basketball now, man, with the way that these teams build their rosters, that there is some inconsistency built into it. But right now, all you have to go by is the short sample size of Thursday. And they looked really good yesterday.
Yeah.
So, I think that they should be able to handle their business against Dayton.
How about this one? Because I love this game. Gonzaga laying 4.5 to Kansas. I mean, we saw Kansas. Like, they're not good.
They did. You know what the thing is? They did what they had to do offensively. They just couldn't guard. They couldn't stop them.
Yeah.
And so now you're going to get Gonzaga, and Kansas is thin. They're shorthanded. What's the line on that game? 4.5. Gonzaga is a 4.5 point favorite as a lower seed.
Yeah, and I would lay it. Wouldn't you?
You lay the 4.5? Yeah, probably.
Yeah,
lay the 4.5.
I would lay it. Dude, I need you to analyze this one. UNC, Carolina, Michigan State.
Yeah, Michigan State is going to have to make sure that this game is played to their liking in terms of pace, because Carolina can come at you with a lot. They can put up numbers.
I was stunned that and the line is low. Like I'm looking at this game, I'm going, really? Carolina's 3.5.
Held Mississippi State. Michigan State held Mississippi State to 51 points.
I mean, did you expect? We talked about that this was not a vintage Izzo team.
No, but he's
and they can. And I liked Mississippi State, and they played well.
Izzo finds a way, though, man. He finds a way to get the most out of his group, and he can really get guys to understand the focus of just this one moment in front of you. He's really good about that. Not look at the bigger picture. And Carolina, that might be a little bit harder for them.
So you think Michigan State's got a chance to pull this upset?
I'll go with Carolina, but I don't. Yeah, I think that game could resemble a little bit of a slugfest.
Okay. Iowa State is 6.5 against Washington State.
Yeah, I like Iowa State a lot in that game, and they were another team that.
Well, they play good defense.
They play good defense.
They grind you. That's what they do. How about the battle of the double-digit seeds? You got to love an 11 v 14, and this is NC State, Oakland. Your Oakland boys, because Legs is in love. Legs was in love, man.
Oh, man.
He loves himself some shooters.
You give me some shooters and give me a Cinderella story to go with it, sign me up.
Oh, man. So what do you think, man? I'm an NC State. I like the way NC State's playing.
I do, too. And listen, this is, this is different level here. ACC coming at Oakland. Oakland, but now Oakland's got to be feeling pretty good with themselves. They're not getting who they expected. Even if they won that game against Kentucky, they're certainly not getting who they thought they were going to get. They're going to get NC State, who's hot right now, but still, they've lost 14 games this year. Like if you're the head coach of Oakland, you look at that, like, okay, listen, this isn't some juggernaut we're going to get, and just play our game and shoot the basketball well. They've got a chance, man.
All right, so what do you do? You just made 10 threes.
Yeah.
And you made yourself a name.
Right.
How do you now replicate, you're not going to hit 10 threes again, but how do you now come back and follow that up with any kind of an encore?
The analogy I'll use, I don't know if you remember, this happened a few years ago. Furkan Korkmaz was playing for the Sixers, and he had like a 30-point game. He had like a 30-point game for the Sixers, and the very next game, he got shut out. Yeah. And I remember thinking to myself, you broke the shooter's code. See, you can't go off to that extent because now they're talking about you. Right? No. Right. Go give them a nice 16, 18, 20, man.
Yes.
Now, you have one of those nights, right?
Yes.
That's fine. You're not going to make the top of the whiteboard in the other locker room if you do that. When you start doing that kind of stuff, and it's funny because he got face guarded the next game. Nobody left him. And
they were on top of him.
And
it was crazy.
This guy, I'm sure, with ridiculous percentage of shots that are threes. We went over
I know.
Right? 95% of his shots are three-pointers, maybe more than that. He's used to it. I'm sure every game he's on the radar. Hey, listen, Golke could really shoot it. That's all he's going to do is shoot threes. Let's make sure we're connected, stay home, deny him the ball, stay on the high side. Do not chase him around. Don't give him space coming off screens. I'm sure he's heard that a million times. So he's been able to adapt and still do his thing, despite the fact that teams know that this is your specialty.
Yeah, interesting. You called it, though. You said, like, listen, what was the total? Because you wrote it down. It was how many twos did he take?
It was, so right now, as we sit here, 347 of his 355 field goal attempts have been threes.
That's unbelievable. He's taken 8 two-pointers. That's insane.
The entire season. And I want to see all those strung together on a video clip so I can watch. Insane. How did you end up with these twos? Because he felt bad about himself taking 8 twos,
Then Tennessee and Texas.
Yeah.
Tennessee looked good, man.
Tennessee looked really good.
Yeah, St. Peter's, though.
Tennessee's been impressive all year, man.
Yep. Illinois and Duquesne.
That's an interesting one because Illinois, they got tested for quite a while.
Yeah.
They finally put that game away in the second half. And actually, there's a kid on that team. I wrote down some names.
And this is the LeBron team.
I wrote down some names of some of the guys that kind of stood out to me. There's Marcus Domask for Illinois. Had a triple-double.
Yeah.
And made some big threes in that game.
Yeah.
Very, very impressive all-around game. So I want to see what his follow-up performance is. But Illinois got tested for a while in that game before they were able to put it away. So let's see if Duquesne, coming off a surprise win, first win in 50-something years, I believe, in the tournament. Let's see if they can follow it up. So that should be entertaining.
It's a great story, man.
And it's good. It's good for rooting interest because it's it's A10.
Yeah.
So you know what I mean. You look at the A10 schools because we got some A10 schools here.
Yeah.
So you look at that and you say, hey, let's make a run for the A10 schools.
And in the final game tomorrow night I think it's a great one.
Yep.
Creighton and Oregon.
Yep.
Creighton a 5.5-point favorite. Creighton looked pretty good.
You and I talked about it yesterday. We both like Creighton.
They
look good. They look good. It took them a little while, but they finally.
There was a little first half, normally happens sometimes.
They got it going when they needed to.
So right now, is it just to kind of put a bow on this thing? Is it still UConn and everybody else?
Yeah, of course. I mean, you're not going to learn much about UConn today.
Right.
And what is that score now? I'm trying to look. They're probably still 30.
Yeah, it's a
70-38, 10 minutes to go. You're not going to learn much about them other than the fact that they were not about to even remotely be susceptible to that, that mentality that you're going to allow some lower seeded team to come in and act like they can play with you for a while. And I think that was a message from Dan Hurley to his team.
Totally.
Absolutely not. Can you imagine if it was 12-12 to start the game, that timeout? By Hurley? That would have sounded like. But he never had to do that. It was 8-0 right off the bat, and they've been cruising ever since. You didn't learn much about them today, but until you see them get challenged and how they respond, I think it's still UConn is probably the prohibitive favorite to win it.
Man, I got to tell you, what an incredible time over the last couple of days.
Yeah, man, enjoyed it.
Talking basketball. I mean, that was just so much fun. And the beauty is, we're going to be doing it now. I'm going to be doing my show every day on PHL, on all PHLY, and Legs will be a weekly guest. And so, thanks, brother. and on the radio is funny because the poor producer, it was Chunas would be like, dude, we got to go to break. Well, now I don't have to worry about it. I can just go with Legs all day. So it'll be fun. There's no limitations to that. But we want to thank you for hanging with us.
Yeah, man.
My brother,
my pleasure.
You're the best,
Always
man.
great seeing you, man.
You're the greatest. So much fun. Don't forget, guys, the PHLY Bets continues with our series next Thursday, and it will be the All Philly show, too. The All PHLY Philly show will be here on Thursday for opening day. Drink specials, raffles, the whole thing.
And ALLCITY NBA. Check out the show.
It's awesome.
I'm doing Adam Arez 4 days a week, usually at 1 o'clock live for the most part. Some days 12, usually 1 o'clock live, East Coast time.
It's a great show.
It's if you love hoops and you really love getting into the games that were played the night before, looking ahead, or any big topic around the league and really have it broken down, we get into it every day.
And one topic, and shame on me, that I wanted to cover with you all day today was the G League.
Yeah.
They're getting rid of it.
I know. Not surprised by it.
But it actually helps college basketball.
Well, that's a whole show we could do on all of that, the impact on all of those types of things.
Because I do want to do a state, almost specials the state of round ball.
What I'm more interested in it is what are going to be the ramifications going forward for college basketball with what's going on with the NIL and the transfer portal.
Yes.
There's too many people that are inside the industry are not happy with what's going on, and that just means a matter of time before it's going to be a change. There's just too much in the air. Like, and the fact that these schools are repeatedly going to the same wealthy donors for more money for the next class, and every time it's more money and more money and more. And guess what? You're now promising some kids sometimes that are mid-majors recruits that you're not even sure if they're how they affect your rotation. But the first question when you walk in their house is how much.
Yeah.
And it's got to be a guaranteed number. And, and the transfer. And I don't listen. By the way, the players want to get money. Great. I was a player. Yeah, absolutely. I want them to get money. I'm just saying it is definitely, and I think it's actually had some coaches leave the game sooner than he wanted to because
I think one of them's in the studio right now.
Because of what it involves.
On CBS. So, she was down the road here.
And the transfer portal might even be a bigger deal. Like, I just think that it's going to have to be addressed, and they're going to have to come up.
And basketball's different than football, right? Like football, you kind of understand, like a quarterback loses a starting job, so you can go somewhere else and play, right? Like, so there's the constant movement in the NCAA football portal is a little bit more understanding.
Real quick before we get off, here's and I talked to a lot of coaches in college coaches, a lot of friends, and a lot of mid-major guys. So, and here's what the problem they run into. You go recruit a kid. You're all in on the recruitment. And you can't possibly work any harder to let that kid know how much you want him. Then you get them. Then while they're there, you develop them. You create a healthy environment for them.
That's not cool.
They thrive in your system.
Yeah.
And what happens at the end of the year?
Yeah.
They go, you know what? I'm better than this.
Yeah, I'm going to Carolina.
I'm better than this level.
Yeah.
And they leave. So I've had coaches tell me their worst case scenario is to have a recruit be even better than they thought.
Yeah.
Think about what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Normally, it's like, oh, we hit the jackpot.
Yeah,
this kid's way better than we thought. Now it's like, oh, God.
No, we're going to leave.
Like, you're sitting there watching him play, and you're like, hey, should we get him out of the game? Like, we should probably get him out of the game. Because he's playing too well. Now he's not going to think that he's worthy of this level. He's going to think he's better than that, and that happens constantly. So that's a big problem for those poor coaches because it's like they're even at that level, mid-major, you always thought you had your guys for 4 years.
Oh, wow.
Now they're even having to reinvent new teams because they're losing 2 or 3 of their best players every year to go up.
Oh.
Yeah,
now that should never happen.
Right, but it is. It's again, I guess it's a free agent market now, and it never was. I guess that's what this has become. It's basically a free market system.
Right, but it's a constant, like, whereas pro sports, you have a contract, right?
Right.
The free agent, like, you got
and that's what Jay Billis recently said. Yeah. He said, what's the solution? Players sign contracts.
Yeah.
That's the only solution. Yeah. Sign contract for the amount of money and for the number of years.
Yeah.
That's what else you're going to do. Because you're right, that's the difference with the pros. It's great, you can leave, but you're going to fulfill this contract first.
Right, so if you're a mid-major and you want to sign a kid, you sign it for 2 years. The kid goes, well, I believe in myself. I'll bet on myself for a 2-year deal.
Exactly. And that may be where we're headed with this.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
It's fascinating. Andrew, you did a great job all week long producing. Thank you, Andrew. You did fantastic. My brother, always safe trip home.
I'll see you soon.
God bless the family and the baby.
You too.
All right? And thanks for hanging, everybody. Have a great weekend. Enjoy all the basketball. And big week coming up. So keep it right here. All PHLY. All right? We'll see you then. Thanks.
We all city.